Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the New Haven Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, August 20th, 2019. The board will now reconvene to open session and report out any items from closed session. Regarding items 3.1, recommended readmission. May I have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation and readmit student number 1?
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Ishihara.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Shima.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye. Regarding 3.2, public employee performance evaluation, superintendent's evaluation, government code section 54957, there is nothing to report. Regarding 3.3, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, government code section 54957, there is nothing to report. Regarding 3.4, update on negotiations with NHUSD bargaining units and unrepresented employees, conference with legal counsel, government code section 3549.1, there is nothing to report. Regarding 3.5, anticipated litigation 1, potential case, government code section 54956.9, there is nothing to report. And no actions were taken in the closed session. Regarding item 3.6, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigations, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D and paragraph 3 of subdivision E of section 54956.9, there is nothing to report. Moving on to the procedural items, may I have you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ishihara.
Here.
Wong.
Here.
Shima.
Here.
Canlis.
Here.
Ford.
Here. 4.3, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda as presented?
So moved.
I'm a second. Go ahead.
Who seconded?
Yeah.
Jeff
Me,
seconded.
Jeff.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ishihara.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Shima.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is the resolution number 008-192, Muslim Recognition and Awareness Month, August 2018. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, we have a resolution that we would like to present tonight, recognizing the contributions of our Muslim American community, and I believe we have a representative here to come up and receive this resolution.
I think we have a couple of people that wanted to speak on it.
Okay. They didn't
Okay, they didn't do blue card, but I think Harris, you can come up, and then whoever is next in line can go up. Thank you. You can come up.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Thompson, on behalf of the Muslim American community, I want to thank you for this recognition this evening. As a resident of this city and a proud product of the New Haven School District, including a stint as our student board representative, it gives me great pride to see this adoption of this resolution in favor of Muslim Appreciation and Awareness Month. Right now in our country, Muslims are being discriminated. We have a president who incites all sorts of hate, bigotry, and has an us versus them mentality. And so it's a difficult time being a Muslim, but there are still places that are accepting and tolerant, such as Union City, such as the New Haven School District. And, you know, I'm incredibly appreciative, and even so because our students now are reaffirmed knowing that their school district values them and that they matter and that they're safe here. And as someone who grew up in a post 9/11 world every day when I came to school here at the New Haven Unified School District, I always felt safe and protected by my teachers, by the staff, by the administrators, and that's a testament really to the community that we live in that's so diverse and so rich, and I just appreciate that. And there's a few other people that I want to speak this evening. From CARE. You come.
Hi, my name is Gana Malik. I'm a government relations intern from CARE, and I'm speaking on behalf of Samina Usman. Today is a truly special day. To be able to celebrate the lasting impacts the Muslim community has made in Union City, and especially in this school district, is incredible, and it also shows what a compassionate city it really is. It has been documented the first American Muslims arrived in this country on Columbus's ships before the nation's founding. Muslims have been a part of America since the very beginning. However, it is no secret that today it is difficult being a Muslim in the United States because of our current political climate. For example, the rising rates of anti-Muslim hate crimes that happens daily in our workplaces, stores, and even our schools. Just in 2016, there has been a 38% increase in bullying nationwide from teachers and school administration towards students simply for being Muslim. We also have a president that has put the us versus them mentality in the nation's mind, which has led to treating the Muslim community as outsiders. For the Union City School District to pass this proclamation not only shows the amount of support and compassion the city has shown our community, but it shows that our community is being heard and we can overcome any obstacle. Passing this proclamation would have been extremely important for me when I was in school. To know that your whole district is in support of who you are is a feeling of immense tranquility. It is evident that because of the president's racist and discriminatory rhetoric, he has been invoked as an inspiration for religiously motivated mass murder and has ignited the flame towards those who think it is perfectly acceptable to openly show hate to the Muslim community. Although we only represent a small percentage of the nation's population, we are present in all aspects of life, from teachers, students, doctors, or even business owners. However, the media hardly depicts Muslims in a positive light. Instead, they inextricably link us as a danger to national security, to the point where the horrendous Muslim ban has been placed in countries that impact the community, even in this school district. What the media does not show is that Islam is a religion of love, kindness, compassion, and acceptance. Because of the increase in hate and violence in our country, it has never been clearer, more urgent, and unfortunately more dangerous than it's ever been in our current situation. It has also never been more obvious that all of us, regardless of any difference between each other, whether it be religion, gender, party affiliation, or otherwise, that we need to not just stand up against all this hatred, but stand up for who we are at our best. And our best is our differences. Our differences make us stronger, and our differences make us American. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to call on Moina Shaikh, who's a leader in our community and who's just been instrumental in creating programs to bring awareness to Muslims.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Good evening, Ms. President and the board members, trustees, sorry. My name is Moina Shaikh. I'm very thankful from the bottom of my heart for this recognition. You don't understand how much and what it means to us. Last month in North Carolina, when at a rally, the crowd was chanting, "Send her back, send her back." I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, they're talking about me. They're telling me to go back. Where do I go back? This is home for 42 years. I cannot go back anywhere. My kids were born and raised here. When the Muslim ban was put into place, again, people were so scared, especially who looked like me. You know, gun violence is an epidemic in America. If we realize it or not, it is. And more than likely is perpetrated by a white male. Do we say all white men are bad? They are all violent? Because that's what we are being made. All Muslims are painted with the brush and said, that's what we are. And especially people who are ignorant, who don't know. They think that all Muslim, all women who wear a headscarf are violent. They should go back home. So it's a very scary time, and it has been scary since 9/11. That, you know, it's hard to even imagine walking on the streets in our own hometown, not knowing the person that coming towards me is going to harm me, is going to look at me as a terrorist or what. So these proclamations really make a big difference in the lives of people like us, because they bring out the good in our community. And as you all know, I mean, Muslims are not bad people. If anything, we are productive members of this society like everybody else. So for the bigger community to know through a body like yours that these people are productive, they're good people, it makes a world of a difference to us. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution, and then I will ask for a second and a motion and a second to get it approved. So resolution number 008-1920, commemorating August as American Muslim Awareness and Appreciation Month. Whereas in an effort to promote and encourage awareness of significant contributions made by the district's Muslim population in culture, social services, education, politics, business, technology, and the arts. And whereas over 90,000 Muslims live in Alameda County and makes innumerable contributions to the cultural, political, educational fabric of well-being in California and the United States. And whereas Union City has a thriving minority population, which includes Muslim Americans. And whereas the New Haven Unified School District serves a sizable Muslim student population, and these students are valued for their contributions and potential. And whereas the adult members of the Muslim American community participate in career and educational training through the New Haven Adult School. And whereas the Muslims in America continue to face harassment, assaults, and discrimination. And whereas it is appropriate to acknowledge and promote the awareness of the myriad of invaluable contributions of American Muslims in the city of Union City, the state of California, and across the country, and extend to them the respect and camaraderie every American deserves. And now therefore be it resolved that the school board of New Haven Unified School District joins communities across and throughout the state of California in recognizing August 2019 as American Muslim Appreciation and Awareness Month. May I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution 008-1920?
Let's
So-
move.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion or comments?
No.
No?
Yes.
Actually, yeah, let's do a presentation first. Yeah, I think if we wanted to have a
Just
discussion.
comment.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
no discussion, just a comment. Thank you so much, Haris Mujadidi and Shamsa and Moina for participating in today's accepting the resolution. It's our pleasure. Being one of the minority members myself, you can see it. I started having my turban after 9/11. So it has brought the best in us. So we will continue the good work we are doing. Thank you.
Okay, if I can ask the board members to come join in for the photo?
Sure.
Sure.
You want to finish our...
Yeah,
let's vote?
finish our.
We haven't voted
you
yet.
have something to
Yes.
say? Jeff?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve?
We already have.
Okay, can I
Now
take
just
the
vote.
roll call, please? I mean, the vote on that.
Yeah.
Roll call, please?
Nishihira.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Chima.
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Now we can take a photo.
One, two, one, two, three.
Yeah, I know, it's like getting back into. Thank you, board members, and thank you, Harris. Thank you, Harris, for joining us. Moving on to the information item. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge we have Supervisor Valle in the audience today. Welcome. I just wanted to acknowledge you. Did you have an item that you were speaking on? Oh, okay. Oh, so should we wait until it gets back on, or you want to do it now? Okay. Which item are we talking about?
It's under public comment without, not related to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, why don't we have you come up and, yeah. This is not on the agenda.
It's not only that he's speaking.
Yeah, okay.
Good evening, board members. Congratulations, Dr. Thompson, on your appointment. Best wishes. I had the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Thompson, and we talked about collaborations that District 2 would like to engage with the board and our students here at New Haven and our teachers. This evening, I have in this envelope the commitment that we made publicly around the time that negotiations began, and that was to save the librarian at James Logan High School. I'll give the check to Annette in just a minute, but it's a $100,000 contribution from District 2 to New Haven for that position. And the people behind me are the ones that contacted my office and said, you know, we need to save the librarian at James Logan High School, a really critical person, so I'm going to let them tell you why that person is so important.
Thank you, Supervisor Valle. I'm really pleased to have this happen here at the beginning of the school year. As you know, we all are experiencing different kind of phases of service here in the district, and when it happened last spring, it was very apparent that one of the biggest resources that we have in the schools is the library, or the Media Tech Center. And obviously having that not available to students, especially at the high school, where they're learning to get ready for their college experience, learning how to research and utilize different resources in all these different manners, it was a very important need. And so it helped me to kind of reach out to supervisor to consider any kind of resources you can to have that happen. And luckily, as we know, and I've worked with Mr. Valle many years, his connection and dedication to service to the youth part of the community has always been very much apparent here. And so I was glad to hear when he mentioned he was able to do that. So I was glad to join him here to kind of see this through and make it continue for this year and hopefully from years going forward. So thank you, Supervisor, for the thing. Appreciate it.
I'd just like to add that the two librarians at Logan, or at least one of them is former, Carla Colbert and then Indira Chakrabarty, both have been friends of mine for a while. Indira introduced me to my wife, which was nice of her. But besides that, they're excellent educators. They stay before school, they stay after school for kids to come, have a place, safe place for them to do some extra work, get some homework done in a quiet space. And lots of kids at Logan, lots of kids at Logan need that time. So I'm really happy, and thank you very much, Richard. Appreciate it. I'm sure they'll appreciate it too.
Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it as well. Yes.
Comment?
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead? Linda?
And I'll open it up to, comment.
I wanted to thank Gavin, Joe, and Pace, and Supervisor Valle for coming out. I really appreciate the commitment to the district and the partnership, and I'm really looking forward to getting the year kind of off on the right foot. And this is a great note to start from. Thank you.
So I just want to say yes, and we do have experienced the difficulties for last springs, and I think we should be looking forward. And all the school districts, we need teachers, we need the administrator, we need everybody to put input, and we try to overcome the difficulty. We should join together. Only way working together we can have succeeded. And we are facing lots of problems. I'm willing to work with you guys, and we're working together. Yeah. Thank you, Supervisor. Yeah.
Member Chima?
Thank you, Supervisor Valle, for rescuing our library position. Besides the normal benefits of the library, one of the big benefits I remember from my son's time that since Logan is a very big school and we need to have different alternatives for the students to spread out. And my youngest son, he used to value it so much that that's his time during the lunchtime that he would go to the library and do his homework, and it gives them refuge. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to our educators for reaching out. Thank you.
Member Callis?
I too would like to thank everyone, first of all, for contacting Supervisor Valle and let him know the needs for our students. And thank you, Supervisor Valle, for thinking about our students. And also, I just want to remember and share with you that when my daughter was in high school, the library was the only place open when everything else was closed. So it's not only providing academic support when the kids need it, but it was also a safe place for them to be, because when there aren't anything else open and the library's open, it says a lot about how important that library is. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and as the sentiments go, I just want to add on that for a lot of the students who don't have connectivity at home, or that they may not have the right resources to be able to finish their homework, this is a perfect place for them to do it. So thank you for pitching in to save that position. We appreciate it.
So in closing, I know that you face many challenges, and relationships have to be rebuilt. I would like to help in those conversations. But I also know that there are other gaps that you have. To the extent that our District 2 can help you, I will meet with Dr. Thompson and his staff to see if there are other potential opportunities for us to collaborate. We do have resources. They're not as extensive as the entire county, but we do have county resources, and maybe there's other kinds of in-kind resources that we can bring to the table. So we look forward to having those ongoing discussions with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the information item 6.1, information on college and career pathways partnership, CSAP, dual enrollment partnership agreement with Chabot Las Positas Community College District beginning year 2019-2020. Scott.
It's not loading.
Good evening, President Carr, members of the board, Superintendent Thompson. We're very excited tonight on the consent agenda item 10.35 as the opportunity for us to come to fruition several efforts that we've made over the last couple of months to enter into a partnership with Chabot and Las Positas Community College to provide New Haven students an opportunity to be concurrently enrolled as New Haven students as well as Chabot students. As part of our agreement, we have worked to create courses that are not duplicative to any of the courses here that are offered to students in New Haven. In this agreement, we would be offering 3 courses to begin with: social justice leadership, financial accounting, and law and democracy. Students in New Haven, there would be a nominal health fee. They would enroll within Chabot, but there would not be for them, being concurrently enrolled students, any fees related to credits or fees related to enrollment. A very small fee in regards to health and wellness, which is assessed by the community college. But this is a great opportunity for us to engage in a pathway to afford students the opportunity to earn college credits prior to their departure from our system by being concurrently enrolled. And so we would ask that you consider and approve our consent agenda item by entering into this partnership with Las Positas Chabot Community College.
Thank you, Scott. So this is information item. No action need to be taken. And if you guys have questions, we can either wait until 10.35 or you can ask now if
I might forget it by then.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, that's fine.
Quick question. So when a student is concurrently enrolled with any of the community colleges, does the teacher come to Logan And deliver, or does the student go to the community colleges?
So for the fall semester, students would be going to Chabot. We would like to be able to enter in conversations with our bargaining units with a goal in the spring of this year, 2020, where we could have either staff from Chabot come onto our campuses to offer courses here on our school site, where even some of our staff, should they be interested, could also be hired by Chabot to actually teach our students as well, should they be so inclined. Those classes could be taught by Chabot staff members or by any of our staff members who may be interested in working in an adjunct way with the community college as well.
So then, when the student take the classes, do they get both points for the A to G credits and college, or just one or the other?
It's college earning credit. So they can actually, during their coursework, as a normal high school student progressing and matriculating through our system, would earn A through G courses toward graduation. This concurrent enrollment allows them at the same time to earn college credit should they enter into a community college, having credits already earned even before they graduate.
So is that open for grade 9, 10, 11, 12, or just for the 11 and 12?
11, 12.
11 and 12. Do they have to have, no, they couldn't have completed the A to G because it's concurrent.
Concurrent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So there doesn't appear to be any budgetary impacts on the general fund. One question that I have is, are there other indirect expenses that we can think about, tasks related to administration or anything like that, that are not actually captured in this?
So at this time, because the courses that are being offered are at Chabot, those would not be incurred at this time. Should we get into an agreement for the spring where we come here, there could be associated costs with room usage, custodial fees, so forth and so on.
Okay.
But again, that would provide the opportunity for our students to have the classes here where they would not have to travel to Chabot in order to receive the instruction in the
Okay, so the agenda, the action tonight is cost neutral.
Correct.
To any fund. Okay.
Correct.
Oh, go ahead.
My question is, and as I understand, the springtime and also the Alumni colleges are coming to talking this, what are these two programs are difference, and Chabot College and Alumni College, and we also have the Mission Valley ROP. So how they related?
So there are other options available for students. Mission Valley ROP, again, is for students, again, are being able to earn credits toward graduation. This agreement with Chabot, similar to the agreement with Alumni, which I believe we already have in place, again, provides opportunities for students to be able to earn college credit prior to their graduation. So I believe, have had this agreement with Alumni previously. We've not had an agreement with Chabot. This allows students to have choice in the community colleges within our surrounding area for either institution.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I know colleges, they had this policy for some times, and in between they stopped it, concurrent enrollment. And it was open for all students as long as your counselor signs up. So with this contract, is there any additional benefit to our students? Do they have to have still sign off from the counselor, or they can just, because we had this contract in place, they can just go directly apply there?
They can go right to Chabot to enroll concurrently in terms of the process for them to enroll. They could also be supported through our counselors in order to do so. Another benefit also lies for our students in terms of their ability to be identified as college and career ready. As you know, through the California dashboard, there are multiple ways and pathways for students to be able to be identified as college and career ready. One of those pathways is through concurrent enrollment. And so this provides other opportunities or other venues for students to be able to earn that designation as they continue to matriculate through our system.
So I know you just said there's 11th and 12th grade students. If the students in 9th and 10th grade, they wish to enroll, is there any possibility for them?
I would need to get clarification from Chabot in that regard. My conversation that I'm aware of is primarily 11th and 12th grade students.
Thank you.
Okay, I have more follow-up questions related to the one I asked already. So if a teacher who's a teacher in New Haven has decided to teach one of those classes from Chabot, where do they get the credit from or pay from? Is that from New Haven or from Chabot?
From Chabot.
The next question is, so is that, this is logistic now, is that counted to our STRS, or is that,
I am not aware of how the retirement system would work. It would be through the employment of the community college. As many other people who may teach in other institutions, I would imagine it would be similar, but I'm not definitive in that knowledge.
Thank you. And then the other question is, you said there needs to be something that needs to be negotiated. Which part was that?
I'm sorry, can you clarify?
In terms of the cost, in terms of the cost in the spring, if we decide to.
So the budget is what you're talking about?
So the costs, if we choose to bring classes here in the spring, would be for the use of the classroom and any custodial or operational support to that classroom being utilized in the evening hours after school.
So that's what you was talking
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, member.
Okay, and I have one more question. Yeah, seems like there's a very good the plan, very good program, help the students achieving quickly. And I also have questions for this kind of program. I mean, what's your views and the benefit for some students, and it's not the high achieved students, and how to improve the district, the different groups, the performance gap?
So, I believe I sent communication in regards to some of the purpose of concurrent enrollment in terms of allowing high school students who may not already be college-bound or who are unrepresented in higher education to be developing a seamless pathway from high school to community college. That's one of the great benefits of the concurrent enrollment agreement, is to provide that opportunity for students. Have I answered your question?
I mean, I saw you writing this. Can you give me a little bit of the details, specified, for example, and students, and if they are average students, and they probably need to finish the high school curriculum instead of going to take the colleges the program. I mean, what you mean is I'm not helping the unrepresented students to achieve, and so I saw you writing there, but I don't understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So students, again, part of the purpose of the concurrent enrollment would be allowing students to be able to create a seamless pathway between our institution and institution of higher learning. Oftentimes, underrepresented students or students who may not even have an inkling of what a college or a community college experience may be, may have the opportunity to be able to gain that experience, affording them the opportunity for more choice as they leave our system. And so that being another benefit for our students as well.
And during the agreement, you can guarantee the students and can take, the students can take the class in the summer, during the summertime. But sometimes it's very difficult to enroll the program.
These classes at this point, to my knowledge, are not offered in the summer. They are offered concurrently with the fall semester and spring semester at the community college.
Okay.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, but just a clarification to Jeff's question. I think you were asking for the students who are like in the middle. I think this program will provide them opportunity to enroll in the college, even though they might not be like too sharp. Before it was up to the counselor. If you have certain GPA, if you're good, only then counselor will sign, and then you can enroll for the concurrent enrollment. But this time, this contract will allow, so to speak, all students, if they want to participate in concurrent, they can participate.
It creates a pathway for them.
It creates a pathway for them. So it's an opportunity for them. For example, if they want to go to the welding class, they are not college, they want to do career. So in the high school, they can attend the welding program at the college and get certification.
Does that help,
Right.
Jeff?
Yes, I was just concerned that this one, most of the time the student have time is the summer. But during daytime, I mean, the school in sessions, they have 6, 7 subjects. It's very busy. And I just think we should consider more and more flexible, more benefit for the students. I like this program, the idea. Yeah.
So the real question is, Scott, so is the program limited to only 3 classes you just mentioned?
For the fall of 2019, it's those 3 classes being
Only.
offered only, and it's being offered at Chabot. We want to be able to work with our association to determine the class offerings that we can build here that would not be duplicative to any of the classes that we currently offer, and house them potentially here in spring 2020.
And remember, there are also classes that we have an agreement with Ohlone College as well. So those options are also on the table.
Okay.
So my understanding was that with the concurrent enrollment, our students, they will be able to participate or enroll into the college courses, not limited to only these 3 courses, but any courses. That's not the case.
That is not the case.
Okay. I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next agenda item, 6.2, Measure M, Bond Projects Update. Ms. Heldman. No.
No.
And these new machines, they are not loading the
It was off.
agenda.
That's why. Okay, good evening, Superintendent Thompson and members of the board. We presented an update on our bond project last fall. Since then, we broke ground on 2 major projects and other projects that we actually started. And therefore, we wanted to provide an update on where we are with the projects that we have going on. Before I turn it over to our facilities director, who would be presenting this to you, I would like to revisit a few information that brought us to where we are now. Where am I pointing? Back there, okay. There you go. Okay, just to revisit the priorities that we are completing in terms of the bond program were born out of the facilities master plan that was developed in 2013. As you can see, the total of those, and they are listed by school sites, was over $300 million. This page actually shows, as you can see, the bond that was authorized by the voters in 2014 is about $125 million, and that's not uncommon. Usually, the needs are always going to be far greater than our ability to raise the money, to raise the local bonds, and therefore, we have to then even more prioritize the list that comes up from that tedious process of master planning. So these are the projects that were prioritized based on that further prioritizing of the facilities master plan. So we are, let's see, we are about 2/3, maybe not quite, in terms of issuing the $125 million. We've done Series A and Series B. We broke ground on 2 major projects, and therefore we are scheduled, as is the original schedule, to work on issuing Series C. We don't want to run out of cash, and therefore that is important to do that as scheduled. There's actually an item in a later part of the agenda that addresses that, so that we are prepared to issue Series C of the bond measure M. So at this point, I will invite our facilities director, Mr. David Estrada, to walk us through the updates on our bond project.
Sure. I just want,
If you can just hold on one second.
I'm
can't
just, because my machine is not working, it's not uploading the information. No, it's not. It's not uploading. No, it's not. Somehow it's very low or whatever is happening. So I'm going to open it on my cell phone. I just want to let you know that I'm not looking into my cell phone. I'm looking into
Thank you,
my
Member Chima.
presentation. Thank you. Yeah, but it's, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh, you gotta use the trackpad. It's not a tablet.
It's a laptop.
It's up now.
I restarted mine.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
We're just having technical problems.
The new
These are new devices today.
You created it. 6.2.
6.2, so
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah, and then
that
it
one.
should show up here. Oh, it's not showing.
No, it's not
It's not
showing
showing.
at all.
It should show right there in the picture.
Yeah, but in the body.
You need to keep it click
Yeah.
several times.
I restarted mine to get.
Even before, it did not show, I was just kind of paying attention there.
You could use mine and everything.
Yeah, but,
I restarted mine to get back to it, so.
Are you connected with internet? Website and Wi-Fi? Okay, Wi-Fi is not connected.
Sorry about this, even on
No,
the
that's
launching, this
totally
happens
fine, I
sometimes. And in the shuttle launching, it happens.
You talk it this way, right? Yeah.
it should be here.
There it is.
It's working now. On the top. Yeah,
there it is.
connected, yeah.
There, that should do it.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You can continue.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President OR, and board members. Just as Assistant Superintendent Helpin brought up, we're well now into our next phasing of progress going on active projects. Make sure I'm getting, okay. The current projects, we're finishing off Guy Emanuel Elementary. Actually, it's done right now. It'll be used tomorrow for the first time for a student drop-off. It was intended for a safe departure and arrival for students, and it's there to be used. And it was a successful project in terms of being timely and it's done on time. So we'll see the benefits of that beginning tomorrow. The next job, Pioneer Elementary School bid out at $9,276,800 there plus. It's on schedule. We are currently went through our demo and hazmat abatement. Grounds, the foundations for the site dirt's been developed. Next phase is actually they're excavating as we speak for new foundations. We brought on interim housing there, which is part of the portables. We had to bring 5 temporary portables to take up the loads that were required to offset those 9 that we took out. We were able to use other classrooms, so we didn't need to replace the 9 for 9. So that is ongoing. That's intended to be finished next September, August, September, and ready for the following school year. So that started off very well. Next one is the Searles Elementary. That project bid out at $7,187,000. We had good bids on that, below the anticipated costs. We're at the point now, phase 1, which was to get the site patio area and do the demo for wing 2. That job is going to be finished in sometime the following September, October of next year. That's a little more of a special project, meaning that we have to actually do it in phases. We have to finish one wing completed, then bring students from the first wing into it, or disperse them to utilize that, then take over the first wing, which is both the kindergarten and the actual admin wing as well. We currently, again, have ready right now the patio area and taking phase 1 just about complete. That job anticipates being done, as I said, August, September. December this year, we hope to get in the second phase of that, and the final phase will actually be in another student drop-off zone, which will be summer. Next thing, they said district-wide summer deferred maintenance. I don't know if Jason wants to speak to that or hold off and come back to that. I'll let him come back to that if you have any questions. By the way, if you have any questions, you can stop me and we can talk about any questions you may have. Next slide. That's a picture of the student drop-off zone. The real intent there was to make it wide enough that you had an area there for students to drop off and allow passengers to come out of the lane and get back onto the road. It's important. You'll see some people try to place a single lane in there. We've been told because there's panic scenarios where parents can't hold, we need to give them an out. So it's a typical width. There's nothing special about it other than it meets all the current ADAs and more importantly, allows your students to drop off. I have to say this because a lot of people are going to say that it's a faster way to get students in and out. That is not the intent. The intent for this use is to have a safe arrival and departure, meaning you have a place to land your students to the curb and allow them to get out without having cars pass around them. I've already heard people, it's going to make it faster, and I just have to tell you, no, it's allowing them to arrive safely and depart. We have to emphasize the use of this is going to be up to persons, for teachers and for staff to allow those parents time to learn how to use it. Tomorrow being the first day. Next slide. Just another picture of the demolition. Pretty much around this district, you'll see that same portable to the left. Those are great buildings. We're finding now they're at their end of their use. We did do a analysis based on your actual master plan. Again, these are the first ones to go. The greatest need was at this site, so it was placed on the top of the list. It's on time. It's going well. It'll proceed just as on time as we expected. There's the patio area. Have you guys been out there? You've seen the undulations as you walk back and forth through most of our school sites. Most of our sites have ADA path issues, being they're not level, didn't meet the original intent of a pathway for wheelchair and access. We're upgrading anywhere we get into these areas where we have a chance to improve them. That's one of the first things we'll do. In fact, DSA, as part of their review, are making that a requirement. I would say every project we have a priority to do, there'll be DSA review comments which will ask us to do additional work. That's part of the requirement for the review. They have rights to do so and are adding those comments through our review process. Again, another picture of them. The low-level seats there will be raised. The CMU has to be raised for seating for students. Projects and design process. James Logan High School now. We are currently in our last throes of review. It's in the third final review. We should be redlined out and probably anticipate this next month having approval, and then in the following month being able to take it out to bid. And we anticipate having it bid this fall, winter time, and beginning in January with the actual construction. Again, that's funded by Mission Valley ROP project. Cesar Chavez Middle School Makerspace has been in the throes of review for the last 3 or 4 months. We kind of got slowed down with the last June scenario reviews, negotiations, and we require participation by the staff, meaning the teachers. We will revisit that coming the following weeks and put that back online. We anticipate going through final design approvals, coming back to the board for those reviews. I would suggest maybe in the next 2 months, meaning that December time we will now have a plan to go to DSA and have it approved over spring. That project will be a spring bid and spring start of next year. We are at the final phase of our comprehensive energy projects. This is the third phase for Plot 39. This entailed we came to the board before asking permission to go for our heater/lighting. We brought you back some good news and some bad news. The good news was that the district did all these great things of creating savings throughout the years. It was bad news in the fact we couldn't create the amount of return we got with our solar panels, the payback. We're coming back with a recommendation finalized from our energy management consultant here in the next month. That date to be determined, but we're at the last phase where we'll be able to make a final recommendation and report back. CEP, Comprehensive Energy Policy, I just jumped it. That's what I was talking about there. The last stage of the Comprehensive Energy Savings goes back to our solar energy projects. We've completed all school sites but 2. The remaining 2 are Seals Elementary and Pioneer. We're currently in development stage from our manager, our energy management consultant. They're looking to hopefully place those projects possibly in tandem with ongoing projects at Pioneer. We put in some preliminary conduit systems to support so we don't lose time. We have an ongoing project where we have construction going on. We're going to try to implement the underground conduit to support that. That's won't be approved, probably coming to the board probably until spring at the earliest for that. Next slide. Completed projects. We've gone through, let's see, next. You're seeing the finalized project. We're going to go through Ballot. We went through parking lot project was done in 2016. Hillview Crest was completed. El Dorado solar projects. I'm going to just take pictures of overshots. These were all completed. The last one was completed in this summer, meaning signed off and approved by DSA. They've all, we're going to report in terms of what they've done in returns, but in terms of projects, they were very successful, met the timelines, and are producing what we expected for production. Just going through them. Some of you may, I'm going to just talk about this briefly. We did have the project out for Logan High School for the field and upgrade. Those have been completed. We're coming to the final for approvals on the project for that through the stadium entry and the field upgrades. You may have noticed we were out there, just a side note, we did do some repairs out there. The repair was complete replacement of our field. That would due primarily to some seam issues that we had, and as a warranty issue, Field Turf came out and replaced it rather than question what part was coming apart to replace the entire field. The only thing that was not replaced was the shot put area, which will be done this before December under warranty repairs. 21st Century Middle Classroom has been up and running for a while. That's the basis for which we started doing, and that's, I'm going to be corrected by Ms. Heldman. We're not supposed to use that word anymore. The newest phasing of teacher learning is going to be the basis for other schools in terms of the maker spaces. These are in multiple areas, including Searles, Pioneer. They all have parts of this program embedded in their projects and are going forward in their design. I think the rest of this is going to be deferred maintenance. I should go with it. Right. All right. So I'll just go through pictures, and if you have any questions, we can talk about them. Roofing projects. We have ongoing roofing projects right now at Chavez and Pioneer, and that is it. Questions, comments?
Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, thank you for the update. Quick question, are we basically within the timeline that we said we're going to complete?
So the original project, there has been some that have been that where you originally put some out there due to the time frames of my hire, and sometimes some of them have been elongated. And let me just say, there's a lot of issues going on right now with getting approvals from DSA, speaking of other issues out there. When we put a project in, it's taken typically a year to get approved, which is a typical note, a year, from the time we start inception to the time we get it through approval. Those have been elongated to sometimes 14 to 18 months. That's due in part to DSA having staffing levels up to date, and also the nature of the amount of projects that DSA's had to review. There's other things that'll affect that, but essentially that's going to staff some of our lines in terms of how long we take to get approved. In terms of on time for the project, they're in the sequence they were set up to be, but there is some date changes because of when I came on and time frames for getting back online. The Searles project and Pioneer, they're pushing pretty much right on time. It's the future projects we'll look at in terms of how soon we can get those back online.
Would the ones that are not complete significantly affect the students starting school?
I'm sorry,
in a negative way? Would the ones that are not done, would it affect their?
So most of what we're doing there, you're updating your facilities in motion. We're doing HVAC repairs, we're doing ADA now. In terms of what that generality looks like, Those are all upgraded as you go. It's a typical maintenance. We're having our deferred maintenance items put in there. There's items like you would say, I want new classrooms. Your classrooms are up to speed in terms of being able to use, but they're antiquated. That's what part of your maintenance was that brings these up.
I want to add something.
Okay, go ahead.
So at Pioneer and Searles, if you've been by those sites, you will see the construction happening. In terms of learning, teaching and learning, we're doing our best to not have any disruption to that, and the separation is what we can do. So classes will go in session. We're working with the city, and we're also working with the site administrators to make sure that communication went out to the community and to the site. So no, we cannot foresee everything. We can't prevent everything, but we're putting in place all the measures so that there is no disruption to school operations, or minimize them as best as we can, especially at those two sites.
All right. I have one more question. When DSA take that long, you said up to 18 months sometimes, does that change, I'm almost thinking, the cost of the project at that point, because it's now taking longer, so the cost goes up probably?
So yes and no. So there's things that mitigate it, but there is always so we can talk about the economy right now, the way it's been. We'll talk about tariffs, prices, copper. Those are always fluctuating up and down depending on when you get them. Most important thing is when we are bidding them out, that we're getting the most competitive bids, and that's how we can affect it and give it the positive in terms of pricing. We got great pricing in our bids. We were out there talking about our jobs, getting responses for people to bid on it. But in terms of higher pricing, that's always a possibility. That's going to be from beginning, the date you first put your first job out to the last one you put out. Do they drop? Rarely do they drop. Have we had drops? Yes, but normally it's your competitive bidding process that keeps it there. We've also been negotiations for labor, whether it's a union labor or cost for labor and jobs. Those are escalating. Those are always continuing. Your factors, there was built-in factors when they first started your estimates, put these in there. And I'm going to tell you right now, the estimates have been pretty close in terms of the pricing we had for both Pioneer and Searles. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. And the one where we got 2 or 3 bids, that was higher. The actual estimates showed it would be higher. They actually give you a percentage of what you have to anticipate. They tell you if you get seven bids or more, you're going to get a lower cost by 2 or 3%. So the persons doing our estimates for us have been pretty accurate in providing those estimates. You're within your timelines right now, and you're within the cost that were placed on here for your master plan. So could that get out of balance sometimes? Which way those winds go, I'm not going to try to forecast that for you. But right now, I think in terms of pricing, we're getting prices. Some things are starting to escalate. I just got a price today for electrical at $119 per hour. Well, that was because in June, the prevailing wage rate was agreed upon for the unions. They went up. We anticipated those going up. Whether or not the estimators could say that they did that 5 years ago, I don't know if that's the case. But again, we're within the pricing factors we considered at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. 2. One, what is the current status? I didn't see it on here unless I missed it. What is the current status of the Hillview Crest modernization? Where is that in your cycle?
So that's one of there's a list of those 3 or 4 which are now being considered to go into, and we'll be getting back to that.
So those are not yet in DSA's hands yet?
Oh, no.
No, not yet. We haven't even started design process yet. So one of the things that actually, a more comprehensive presentation is actually lined up from our facilities in November. Okay. In the fall, all the annual updates from the business services departments will be presented to you, and we will have a more comprehensive information at that time. So there's going to be inevitably rejuggling of those priorities, and a lot of times it's based on, we try to put certain projects together for economies of scale or for cost-saving measures. So that schedule will always change, and we are in the process of updating that right now.
Yeah, now, I wasn't actually on the board when the original prioritization sequencing list was put out. One of the things that I'm concerned with is the fact that Hillview Crest, which is probably, at least from a facility standpoint, probably one of the oldest, probably close to Cyril's, and if it's last on the modernization list, and we can anticipate that costs are going to be going up, it kind of seems like because it was sequenced third, if prices go up across the board, the last projects are the ones that are going to have the least amount of money. What kind of things, what kind of processes and controls will we put in place to make sure that all the facilities, regardless of their sequence, have adequate bond resources to them so they don't get shortchanged?
Well, the reality is that is not uncommon in a bond project because you're talking about a 10 to 12-year program. And there are so many things that can get out of control in terms of why cost escalates. And a lot of those are not things that we have a say on. Building industry standards, prevailing wage. And so it is not uncommon for the list, the very last of the list, sometimes may not happen, which is why scheduling them and constantly, regularly revisiting them and reprioritizing them is key. Now, what do we do to try to mitigate that? As David mentioned earlier, that is the reason why we go through the public bidding process, because that can help in terms of getting competitive pricing. When we go out for bids, we actually put all our front-end documents so that all the specs are included in there. And as you know, you see them now and then, we do have, by law, we are allowed to have a threshold in terms of cost increases, whether it's something that we requested from the contractor or it's something that is necessitated based on the project. So there are systems that have been established, for who knows how long, that we do follow in order to mitigate those types of things.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions, Ms. Chima?
On slide 23, if you can go back.
23?
23, yes.
The installation of solar on Mary Cardozo Center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you get
How
it?
about this, the one you have right now, Pioneer Elementary School? Did they install that already? The new play structure?
Yes, those are installed.
Oh, okay. I can check it out.
They're installed district-wide with the exception of Cyril's and Pioneer.
I see.
Everywhere else are up and running and functioning.
Okay,
So solar is district-wide except for the two that are doing the modernization right now, which made sense to not do it then
Yeah,
because
of
we
course,
we haven't even entered the design process at that time.
Right. So in 23, these are not on the rooftops or anywhere. These solar panels.
So these are on the roof, at Mary's, it is on the rooftop.
This is on the rooftop.
We have two facilities in which we did rooftop installation.
Oh, okay. So this is rooftop. I just want to make sure.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. They're not standalone arrays.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That doesn't make sense. Just want to
Okay.
make sure. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. You want
And
to-
thank you for explaining all of those Linda's questions. I do understand how the things work, but thank you.
Okay, so next item, 6.3, I believe. This
Yes.
is well, before we move on to that, as you can see, we are delivering to our community and our taxpayers what we promised that we would deliver based on the authorization that they voted for us in 2014. So there's a lot of things happening. Cyril's and Pioneer, I was actually at the site last week, and it's very exciting, especially the patio at Cyril's. It's the undulations were very serious prior to that. So now it seems to have widened, and like I said, it's really exciting stuff.
And actually, if I may add, just because you were talking about the improvements there, Dr. Thompson, Scott, and myself, we did a walkthrough of Cesar Chavez last week, actually. We're trying to bring in a STEM program, a mother-daughter STEM program here to Union City, and they're going to be using our science wing in Cesar Chavez. So we had the leads from Fremont and of that program come visit our school sites, and they were actually very impressed. They said our schools are almost better than the Fremont schools.
Yay.
They are. And it's not just the parking lot. They go in, they're like, wow, they're, nicely maintained. A lot of the projects are, they were surprised and actually very impressed by our lab, the science wing labs. They had not seen those kind of classes in Fremont. So I felt very proud, and I'm sure Dr. Thompson as well, having come in as a new superintendent, actually got to see those classes himself. It was really nice to hear that from someone who's always raving about, Fremont schools or whatnot. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Her word exactly, money well spent.
Very good. That's very good to hear. And like I said, we see it. We just need to travel our sites and we can see those improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the next item. Last year, we had some discussions with regards to exploratory discussions, actually, with regards to employee housing. We happen to have, fortunately for us, unlike most school districts, we happen to have an empty parcel of land that we can actually explore this. And so part of the conversations that we've had before, we actually even had a study session, was the direction to staff to conduct a survey in terms of the feasibility of a bond measure that would not only support additional capital facilities improvement, as you saw in the facilities master plan, the need is always going to be at least 3 times than our ability to raise local bonds. So the feasibility study in terms of a bond measure that would support that, as well as an employee housing. That survey was conducted in the spring, and tonight we have a representative from ISOM Advisors who conducted the survey on our behalf to present the results of those surveys. So I would like to introduce John Isom from ISOM Advisors.
Great. Thank you and good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and I appreciate the introduction that Annette provided. And so, yeah, just to kind of jump right into it, our job here was to help assess the feasibility of a school improvement funding measure. Just a bit of additional introduction as far as our firm goes. Our role as a financial advisor to school districts is to help districts access capital funds to make facility improvements. And the lion's share of school districts that do that have to tap into local bond measures. Our success in the last couple of election cycles, this will be going back to 2016, 2018. As you may know, districts nowadays pretty much go in the even years when there's regularly scheduled elections. We've been quite successful in implementing over 125 different school bonds for school districts throughout the state of California, all of whom engage in this same process, which is ask the voters, find out from them what they're willing to support, if they're willing to support you, and to what levels that might be. And a key component in all of this is this voter-approved survey, because this gives you, as a board and as a district, quantitative data, right? Statistics, numbers by which to help make decisions, and feedback, statistical feedback from your community as to which way they collectively think. By itself, a survey is good, but it's better when you add to that qualitative feedback. So quantitative is a survey, gives you data. Qualitative is, okay, I talked to the union presidents, I talked to the Chamber of Commerce, I talked to the mayor, I talked to the police chief. You also want to balance those conversations. But for tonight, I'm going to speak exclusively to the quantitative, to the survey results, walk you through this information and give you some insights and interpretations of the data as it relates to New Haven Unified School District. Well, so just kind of an overall, about the methodology. First and foremost, it's important to note you have about 40,000 registered voters. For a district of that size, we wanted to sample about 400. 402 people participated, so we were appreciative of that. Once you know you're at 400, you kind of stop making the phone calls and interrupting people's evenings. But we were very appreciative for those that did participate. Gives us a margin of error about 4.86%. The goal of the survey, I alluded to it earlier, which is helping assess the feasibility, but very specifically, we wanted to test attitudes towards you the district. Because if people like you, they'll be inclined to support you. If they don't, you might have a $1 a year bond and they'll say no, because it's a vote of no confidence. So we want to test you. We also want to test attitudes towards projects, attitudes towards tax rates, and ultimately whether or not support would be there. And as was mentioned by Annette, we were able to do these surveys, questions in the spring and come back with this information for you. Now, I'm not going to read each and every one of these categories. I'm not going to go over every single percentage, so I'm going to just kind of point out a few things, some highlights, maybe some lowlights, but again, to give you guys some context. The order of questions here is not necessarily the order that we asked in the survey as well. A lot of those questions were randomized, so that's just a tool that we use to preserve data integrity. So what we did try to do is put this in a logical presentation format for you this evening and for the community. So some of the questions we asked, at the end, and some of them we asked in the beginning and the middle, but for the most part, this follows along the survey. So we did start out, hey, right direction, wrong direction, California, just to get people used to it. And you can say in this community, it was pretty split. Most people slightly thought California was wrong direction, and you can see some of the other data. On the right-hand side, we asked them about the quality of education in your district. This is one of the first questions about, all right, do they like you? Do they think you're doing a good job? Now, while it's a temptation to look, all right, how many are we doing on excellent? I also always look at poor, okay? Do you have something that sticks out as an issue? And for context's sake, this is a very solid number for the district. 4% saying poor, very small percent, so you don't have a large group of disgruntled folks. Generally, you've got most people thinking that the district is doing a good or excellent job. Bottom left-hand corner, while we know everything else, not everything, while we know a lot of things about the voters, from their ethnicity to their age to their gender, homeowners or renters, political party, we don't know if they've got a connection to the schools. So we do ask that question in the bottom left-hand corner, the goal of which is to ensure that we don't have a slanted sample that is exclusively parents of kids in the district, because we don't get to just have parents of kids in the district vote on the measure. So happy to report that this is, fairly indicative or reflective rather of the community, and about a third have kids in the district, 20% in the past, and almost half have no ties whatsoever to the district. So that's important to note as well. Some, again, attitudes towards the district. We asked them to give their assessment as excellent, good, fair, or poor on the following categories. This is reflective, again, of most communities. If we're looking at kind of the green, or if you're looking at the order from kind of greatest support to least amount of support, this follows most school districts. Most people know who their teachers are, so there's just a greater awareness and knowledge. Managing of district finances, that's just the easy one for people to assume that bureaucracy, they can't manage their budget, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing out of the ordinary here. Again, we're more concerned about people not liking you, but I would say generally speaking that the community does like you, and so this is all positive information. We also wanted to kind of test some thematic questions. And it's interesting, I've done this for 21 years now, and a lot of these questions you ask the same because it's relevant, and a lot of times the attitudes have changed. Post-Great Recession, where people saw the impacts of good schools, happened to be in an area where there were good property values, or vice versa. You had good property values where you had good schools. People acknowledge that, and that is so true here. 93% of the voters see that correlation between good schools and good property values. They also understand that the state doesn't do a good enough job of funding education. And so we asked that question, essentially asking, is this something that you think local voters need to do more or do their part? And happy to report that 82% of the voters here agreed with that as well. This is an important question. This is the ballot measure question. We call it a pre-benchmark. This is absent a lot of detail. In fact, all they get, and we did read this big, long, 75-word run-on sentence, but that is what a ballot language looks like. And this is what a ballot language might look like for your district. And so we read that to them and asked the question, if the election were held today, would you vote yes to approve or no to disapprove? And again, there's not a lot of information. and yet people were willing to volunteer their opinions. And in this community, I would characterize that about 60% of your voters are ideologically supportive of schools and education. And about 27% of your voters are probably ideologically opposed to taxes or bonds. And then the middle ground of about 13% fall into the undecided category. And we ask this because in some respects, a voter might not hear anything about a tax measure through a campaign. As much as we think we send out mail and we knock on doors and we make phone calls and we talk about it and it's a Facebook page and we do all the social media, there's still a large segment of the population that won't hear or understand what we're trying to do. So we want to get a feel, what kind of response do we have in a vacuum without any campaigning, without any information, and do we have greater than 55% support? The answer in this case is yes. But we do intend on doing some type of campaigning, some education, and so we want to measure the same question later on in the survey. But before we do, we've got to get to the education. So again, this isn't the order of questions, but rather we went ahead and put these in order of priority to your voters. So it was randomized if you were on the receiving end of a phone call, but to make it easier to understand, we put this in order. So we asked all these questions. Would you be more likely or less likely if you knew funds would be used to, and then we went on. So tremendous support for career technical education, number one. That's the most important thing to your voters is career technical education. Then you get into a lot of what we kind of call the brick and mortar, right? Repairing your roofs, student safety, modernizing old classrooms, plumbing and sewer, health and safety, inadequate electrical systems. Not a lot of, really kind of sexy projects among the group, right? These are just, hey, if it's old, if it's outdated, if it's aging, I'd be inclined to support the measure based on the projects that you're presenting here. So when you're thinking of education, when you're thinking of reaching out to the community and explaining the needs of the community, these are the kind of things that they want to hear. These are the kind of projects that they are willing to support, and in a big way. All of these projects on this page, greater than 75% support as measured by the red and the yellow, which is much more likely or somewhat more likely. So if you're more likely to support the measure, we put that up there. Now the next battery of questions, a little less so on the brick and mortar, right? You can see these, replacing old portables with new classrooms, energy efficiency, and then we get into these questions of workforce housing. Again, keep in mind, 55% is what we're looking for. SSA and SSB, just for an explanation. Of the 402 respondents, 201 or half got one version of a survey that included what we call split sample. So split sample A and split sample B. The reason that we do this is because there's a whole bunch of different ways to communicate, to describe what you're trying to do here. And this gives you and gives us an idea of what's important to your voters and how do they view it in the most favorable light. So when we're looking at this, again, all above 55%, but people here, voters here, prefer to construct workforce housing to provide affordable housing for teachers and staff. Simple. It's about as simple as you can get. We went into the rental income. We went into this, retaining high quality teachers. We went into allowing them to be part of, the community, Union City. But in its most basic level, your voters preferred the language of simply workforce housing to provide affordable housing for teachers and staff. And you got well over 65% for that type of language. So as it relates to the projects that the district's considering, all of the projects receive great support. That's important, I think, as you evaluate, kind of priorities going forward. Then we went into tax questions because we wanted to be, unequivocal. This is a tax, and we need to educate you on how much of a tax you might be looking at. Now, again, half of the voters, half of the respondents received SSA or a split sample, which would be on the left-hand side. So half the people, we told it to them on an annual basis, and then the other half we said on a monthly basis. And you can see, when you break it down on a monthly basis, you actually get a little bit more support. $5 a month is preferable to $60 a year. Now, we're not quite at the 55% 50% threshold at $60 a year. So there is a little bit of tax sensitivity as it relates to a proposed measure here. Now, if someone said they were supportive at 60, we didn't need to ask them about, well, what about a lower tax rate? If you're good for 60, you're probably good for 48, you're probably good for 36. But if someone said no to 60, then we said, okay, well, what about 40, or, yeah, what about 48? If they said no to 48, okay, what about 36? So we kind of kept going down the ladder, so to speak. But at 48 or $4 a month, good support. You know, again, 55% is the goal. You're well within that level of support at both of those rates. And at the $36, now all of a sudden, some of the no's even changed their mind and said, okay, yeah, at that rate, $3 a month or $36 a year, I'd be willing to support you. So this is, I would say, fairly typical as well. I'd say, you know, of the districts that we work with, 75 to 80% of the districts are able to get kind of the maximum tax rate under Prop 39, which in this instance would be $60. But there is the occasional community that has some tax sensitivities. You're right on the cusp, again, between the 48 and the 60 as far as level of support. And I say that just because when it's all said and done, I think if you ask yourself the same question, if I liked a municipality and I know that municipality had significant needs, while I might not want to pay $60 and I was okay at 48, am I going to really vote no on account of a $12 differential? If I like the district and I know they have needs, generally not. Again, this is a chance for voters to give us their opinions, and would you be more or less likely, but it is not an absolute. So just to give you that context there. This might be the most important question of all. This is the post benchmark. So throughout the survey, people should have an absolute idea of the types of projects, that it is a tax, the types of tax rates. So in many instances, it's almost a mini campaign. We've educated people. We've told them how the funds might be spent. We told them how much it might be. And we asked the question again, now that you've heard all this information, would you vote yes or no? And happy to report, the support went up. You know, it went up to 65.7% yes. With 1% lean and 6% undecided. So in essence, you gain most of the support from the undecideds. You know, those that said, I generally like the idea, but I'm undecided, tell me more. And then they said, I like what I'm hearing, now I would vote yes. So 65.7%. If you add in the lean yes, is actually pretty close to what this district has historically done in its elections. The district has routinely gotten into the high 60s, even the low 70s on prior bond elections. So what does this mean, big picture for the district? Conclusions and recommendations. It's all generally good news. You know, certainly you'd like to see greater support for the tax rate at the highest level at $60, so there is some sensitivity, but they like the projects. They like you, they like the concept, and are willing to support a bond. Ultimately, our advice is to really focus on now the qualitative assessment. You know, we feel like the everyday voter's on board, but do we have the support of elected officials, civic leaders, community groups, unions, that sort of thing? Because that can sway public opinion a little bit, right? So you might be 65%, but if you don't have any support among some of these other key stakeholders, that 65% is going to go down. If you can get good support from those key stakeholders, it's likely that 65% is going to go up, because there still is a good chunk of undecideds and some people that are leaning. So our advice is to continue to that public outreach, that education to the stakeholders. For all intents and purposes, we think March of 2020, which is your first chance at a Prop 39 bond, would be recommended. Working backwards from election day in March, you would need to submit a resolution 88 days before election day. So that means by December 5th or 6th, whatever that Friday is in the first week in December, is the 88-day deadline. That would be a time for the board to submit a resolution. So typically maybe a November board action or an October board action, where you would have a resolution that would call an election. It would specify the specific projects. It would specify the tax rates. Ultimately, it has to specify by consequence the total bond amount, you know, just how much you're going to be asking voters. And again, that would be, somewhat contingent on that qualitative aspect of things. If you don't make March 2020, there is November 2020. There is the presidential race itself, and working 88 days back from that would put you in the first week in August. But I think right now the support's there, so bird in the hand, it's worth two in the bush. March of 2020, I think, would be our recommendation at this point in time, unless there was something to say, oh, stop the presses. We talked to the stakeholders and no one's supportive of this. But I don't think that will be the case based on the strong support from the survey. So happy to take any questions that you might have on the topic.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. To what extent does voter turnout play in any of these scenarios, being that March relative to the presidential is going to have probably a much lower turnout? Do you see that variable playing with any of your numbers, you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just historical data alone, if you looked at presidential primaries versus presidential generals, gubernatorial primaries, gubernatorial generals, the presidential primary has enjoyed the distinction of being the most successful type of election. Okay, so just history, just data itself, about 90% of all bond measures on the presidential primary have passed. Of our 125, and this spans both presidential primaries and gubernatorial generals and primaries, et cetera, I would say about 40% of our districts go in a primary because they'll pass. And while November 2020 on paper seems like, well, that might be attractive to do if John's telling me 90% of them pass and maybe only 85% of the bonds pass in a presidential or gubernatorial general, we don't know what 2020 November has in store. Is there a recession that could happen between March and November? Possibly. Is there a certain upswell of sentiment like the Tea Party, if you remember going back to November of 2010? Tea Party was a bad day for school bonds. Really an outlier as far as support, because there was a kind of this cultural movement that went through and caused, I would say, a lot of bonds actually to fail. So our philosophy is, hey, if you can pass in March of 2020, even if maybe you would have a little higher percentage in November of 2020, go for what you can pass and when you can pass it, because things do change. There's variables at school district level, politically that can change at the board or with the teacher or, who knows? There's just those question marks. So our advice to districts that have this level of support is to pursue March. I actually think that the uniqueness of March of 2020 it will bode well for Democrat-leaning communities like yours. I mean, you're predominantly a Democrat community as far as your registration. Democrat turnout is going to be high in March. Typically California is a June primary, and we're an afterthought nationally. No one spends any money to get voters out in California when it's on the June ballot. Democrats will spend money to get their votes out in a March, because California will be relevant. So all of a sudden, whether it's Kamala or Bernie or Biden or whomever, they're going to be encouraging their base in California to turn out, because that's a lot of votes to help maybe get them elected to be the Democratic representative. Contrast that with Republican side, no one's going to spend any money to encourage a Republican turnout in March. So we see March of 2020 being a little different than prior presidential primaries, A, because of the March timeframe, you're just going to get more turnout, and B, because it'll be a bit of a barn burner, if you will, for Democratic candidates.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Ms. Callis.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You mentioned that there are 40,000 voters here, but you took 402 samples. How did you choose participants?
Yeah, great question. So you had to be registered to vote. You had to actually have voting history. So if someone's been registered for the last 4, 6, 8, 10 years and they've never voted, we didn't include them. We wanted to make sure that the votes and the voices here were representative of people who will vote or have a high likelihood of voting in 2020. Obviously, you had to have a phone number and you had to respond. So that was the criteria. So if you met that criteria, you were going to be part of our pool of sample that we would make calls to. If anything, it slants a little conservatively, just because of people who have landlines tend to be more participatory on these measures, and people who still have landlines tend to be a little bit older, right, than the younger generation that, you know, just, hey, I got my cell phone, I don't need a landline. So it does skew a little bit old, but that was the universe that we started with and we ultimately selected from.
So there were all phone calls, then none, no electronic surveys done?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that's by design. You know, when you invite people to participate, those that participate tend to want to participate, and they see school district, oh, I want to give my input to the schools because my kid goes there, something else. We wanted to completely, essentially catch people by surprise, answer the phone, hey, this is some local stuff we want to talk to you about, okay, tell me more. And then once we do the survey, they get engaged that way. So it's truly a random sample, which is what we strive for.
And you said that you use mainly landlines, phone calls, right?
Yeah, there were cell phones. There definitely were cell phones, but landlines tends to be your higher participation.
I'm just thinking loud right now. I know I never answer my landline, so I'm just wondering how that really affects people who might be doing what I'm doing, how that affects.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why 400 is a perfect number. You know, if you've had 60,000 registered voters, 80,000 registered voters, we always generally target 400, knowing that you're going to have a lot of people like yourself, like me. I'm the same. I never answer my landline. But 400 people did participate, both cell phone and landlines. And again, that's why you get that sample, and that's why you have the margin of error.
And last question, why 400 a magic number?
Just you know, just if you look at that very first slide, you get into the margin of error. You know, if you said, oh, well, let's try 600, for example, the margin of error goes from like a 4.86 to like a 4.1, and yet it's 50% more expensive to do. So adding additional names and numbers and households to participate just marginally increases or improves that margin of error. So 400 just is a sweet spot. Of our 125, we almost always pick 400, unless it's a really big district, and then we'll go to 600.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions?
Yeah, you have actually why 400, so you already have given my questions answer. Like Linda said, we don't even have landline. I mean, we always vote. So there are people like that. But anyway.
Yeah, and that's why you do a sample, because 400 is representative of the 40,000, even if we don't get everybody.
Okay. So I'm wondering why I can get that phone call.
You might have, and you just didn't answer. You just said you don't answer, so.
All my messages, though. But I guess I can't call back.
And they don't leave a message. You know, it probably comes up as scam likely, or, you know, private name or unknown, or you know, whatever it is, and a lot of people don't answer, and it is becoming more difficult, but fortunately a lot of people still participate.
So I have two questions. One, that the survey was conducted between April 30th to May 2nd, and that was the time where the district's environment was not very favorable to the community. So do you know if that has any impact on the responses you may have received?
Yeah, I think it was, actually I think it was a little bit prior to the climate changing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that this is still very valid data. Part of it is, I think, your voting history. Part of it is our experience in doing this, and part of it is just kind of a general read on the community. So some districts say, hey, you know what, I'm really concerned. I think the climate has totally changed. And you can do a tracking poll, for example, and go out and reassess 400 people or a smaller group and ask the questions, similar questions, not the whole thing, because people aren't going to have their attitudes change, honestly, on the projects. You know, if I'm mad at you, all of a sudden it's not like, well, I'm not supportive of leaky roofs anymore. The same with the tax tolerances. I think if anything, there might be, and not in this instance specifically, but if there's ever kind of attitudinal changes, it's just the general attitudes towards the district. You know, do I like these guys or not? But no, I feel very strongly with the data that we have and the climate that you're in now, and comparing that to the climate at the time of the calls.
Okay. And my second question is, you mentioned that March 2020 is typically more favorable for the district. I do know that the city might be possibly putting on a bond measure as well. In your experience and in your opinion, how does it go when you have two bond measures on one ballot, one for the city, one for the school district, ultimately increasing the tax for our citizens?
Yeah, great question. And actually a question that came up just the other day that for a similar district that was facing similar measures on the same ballot. School districts have a huge advantage, right? Number one, it's 55% versus 2/3 supermajority. You also have a big advantage in that you have generally cute kids, even if they're not cute, like my teenage, high schoolers. People still, I think, value the importance of education more so than, maybe police or fire or things of that nature. 2016 presidential election up in Shasta County, we had 4 tax measures on the same ballot.
Wow.
The community college district, the high school district, the elementary district, and the city of Reading. 4 measures all on the same ballot in Shasta County. Your demographics are, flip-flop from what they've got going on up there. And we represented the 3 education districts, the college and the high school and the elementary. All 3 passed. The city actually failed. We didn't work with the city, so I don't have too much insight as to maybe why that failed. But I do think in my experience and in my history, we've worked on dozens of measures that had complementary or competing, depending on your point of view, on the same ballot. And this survey information generally holds true. Oftentimes we'll ask a question. The city is also thinking about getting on the ballot. If the city was on the ballot and we were on the ballot, would you vote for the city only, for us only, for both, or for neither? And almost universally, the school district holds their level of support when given a choice among voters. So, it's kind of counterintuitive. People think, well, wait a minute, if you're asking me for 2, maybe I just all of a sudden say no to both or to the schools. But it's like, if you're going to support the schools and then the city comes on, am I now going to not support the schools just because the city's also on there? There might be a couple of random people that do, but I feel people are going to be true to their opinions, true to themselves, and generally vote the way that they would have absent that. So that's my experience. Like I said, I'd probably 2 or 3 dozen in the last 8 years where there were 2 or more, again, could be considered complementary measures as opposed to competing measures. Some people I think it's time we get behind our schools and colleges and high schools or cities. So it's one of those things that we feel confident on as well.
And actually, one last comment. It's $36 per $100,000 of assessed value. A medium home in Union City is about $900,000, almost $1 million. So people did understand that it's not just $36 a year. It's actually $36 per $1,000. Right. Right. So did that ever come up in the conversation? Was that ever explained to them?
So it's not, and I'll give you the background on it. So when voters vote on the measure, for the truly lazy, lack of a better term, the only thing they're going to see is the 75 words. And it's disclosed in there, right? It says 6 cents per $100 of assessed value. How many people know what that means or can calculate it remains to be seen. But we should just treat it as such that we won't have an opportunity to educate them and explain it. The tax rate statement, let's say I want to do a little more research than just the 75 words. Sample ballot, I get to go in there, I get to look at all the projects, and I can see the tax rate statement. That's a little more clear because it says per $100,000 of assessed value, and it's $36 or $60, and it says what the tax rate's going to be in the first year, what it's going to be in the highest year, what it's going to average. So we do a much better job of educating, and yet we still don't translate, for lack of a better term, what that means, because there won't be anyone there to translate it forward. So in many respects, that tax rate question is just at its face value what people's interpretation of that might be. Because it's not market value, and some people erroneously are going to assume that it is market value and say, oh, well, it's $1 million. Whereas the assessed value in the district may be closer to $400,000 as far as what the median or the average assessed value is. So we don't get into that level of detail because we don't think we'll get to that level of detail throughout an education campaign. And we just trust, again, at face value that people are going to interpret that how they will. And some people will do the math. But like you saw in that very first pre-benchmark question, 60% of your voters, I think, are just ideological. It's like my grandma. I had a grandma, she taught special ed. And I talked to her about bonds. She goes, oh, Jonathan. She's the only person that calls me Jonathan. She's like, oh, Jonathan, I vote for all those things for the kids. Anytime there's something for the kids, I vote for it. I said, well, Grandma, what if it was like $1,000 or, I try to bait her into, she goes, oh, it doesn't matter. I always support the children. Okay, that's an ideological. And then there was my dad for a spell. He's like, oh, I vote against all bonds. Dad, what if it was like $1? Don't care. I vote against all of them. I changed his mind when he realized Prop 13 gave him a huge benefit for his property value increases and quality schools. But again, he and I had these one-on-one conversations that made it possible. So ideologically, the support is there. Some people will take the time to calculate it. I actually don't think there's going to be a huge percent that do, and so we have to give it to them at face value.
Understood. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good questions.
Yep. I think no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item, 6.4, items from the board and superintendent. We'll start with Member Nishihara.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the school year starting next year, or tomorrow, sorry.
Yeah, next year.
Next year. My youngest is going to be going to Logan for the first time, so that's going to be a monumentous event. I unfortunately won't be able to be there at the 8 o'clock meeting in San Francisco, so unfortunately I'm not going to be there. So I'm wishing everybody well. Second thing is I wanted to kind of express my public support for the fair and funding, full and fair funding effort. Thank you, Member Canlis, for kind of leading the charge there. As I understand it, if I do the math right, it should be adding $2,000 to each base grant, which is roughly $24 million in our general fund. So that would be a huge leg up for us. It would be sustainable. It would be great news. So I will be voicing my support, and I'll be sending my letter to all of the elected officials and talk to as many people as I possibly can. And unfortunately, Supervisor Varya left. I was going to mention it there, but okay. So and then also. Actually, that's all I really had. I'm going to go ahead and yield the rest of my time.
Okay, Member Wang.
Okay, and some things, and for the fair fundings, and yes, we're 100% to support it, and yes, and I'm willing to working more, and I'm already to talking to one of the assembly, and we want to have the Chinese radio issues and talk, and to discuss this to the Chinese community. And and the other things I was just talking about anyway, the welcome back, and welcome all the teachers, and back for another year, so we're very excited. And for the August 8th, August 10th, and all of the board members and the superintendent, we participated the Chinese event in James Logan. First of all, I thank you for you guys to support for the Chinese this event, and really tell the people, and James Logan, and it's a good school, and we want to advertise in our school district and attract more people. And thanks for the superintendent to support as well. Also, I just want to mention, and for this Sunday, and the city have one event, which is a sister city. I think the 15 years or 17 years. Mm-hmm. And yes, I mean, I think the communities and also the cities, and we should all involved. And I mean the cities, and we are all lots of immigrants, and we come from different backgrounds, and we should mingle together. I think we have 6 countries, 7 cities, and for the sister city that was on Sundays, and 3 o'clock, yes, and that's in the Mark Greens and the Sports Center. Sports Center is there. I'm going to be there, yeah, and I think pretty much that's all, yeah.
Thank you. Member Chima?
Thank you and welcome to everybody to a new school year. I hope tomorrow things work out right. I got some chances to talk to some parents as well as to some of the teachers. I expressed my opinions or some of the questions the community members or parents they've been asking, that they fear that their students might not be targeted because they've been attending the schools during the strike. So I have shared those sentiments with our superintendent and some of our partners, union reps. I hope and truly pray that everybody moves forward. I know it will take some time for some people, but I hope they act nice and we are all in this together for our students. I hope that our enrollment is not declining than the normal projection because of the strike or other experiences we had in the last year. So I'm truly praying that all of us move together forward. And all of us, we need to participate. I know our new superintendent have made the commitment, and my fellow board members as well, that we will be participating in the most of the, as much as we can participate in the community events so that we can market our district, the very excellent programs we offer in our schools, and just beyond the normal community members, they consider themselves their second or third generation participant in the school district. There are a lot of new demographics which we need to reach out to work with. So looking at the survey in the last presentation, I just noticed that 46% of the people, they shared that their kids or the grandkids, they never participated in our schools. So I forgot to mention it in the last presentation, but I think there is a large section of the community that we need to reach out so that we can increase our enrollment. Thank you so much for Jeff Bank for inviting us for the sports event. I know we had the 6 sports event in July, but we need to better inform each other so that we can market our district in the future community events which are happening in our schools all the time. But we need to kind of leverage all those events so that we can share our success story to all of our community members. So we need to make a plan for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Canlis.
I too would like to join my fellow board members to welcome back the students, parents, teachers, staff, and our new superintendent to New Haven, as well as the board members for another year. I have confidence to all the leadership, the teachers' leadership, the superintendent, this board, that everyone is going to work collaboratively to make sure that we move forward and do the best for our students, because I know everybody cares for that bottom line, and that's our students. So I have confidence that everyone is open to looking for ideas on how to improve to serve our students and make this district one of the best districts that we've been talking about. As far as the Fair for funding, I just want to explain a little bit what Mr. Nish Harris mentioned. As you know, the East Bay Coalition, which is a group of teachers, union leadership, SEIU, CSEA, sorry, it's been a long night, parents, students, community members, superintendent, school board are for the first time working together in asking Sacramento for funding for our students. As you know, California is 41st in per pupil funding, even though we are 5th in world economy and 1st in the United States. It's just not fair for our students. So the group, the coalition, is working with you to encourage our legislators to make sure that they do what they promise. They always talk about supporting education, but this is a good time for them to support education. And we need your help in making sure that every single one of you, especially people listening at home, to make a point to call your legislators to encourage them to make sure that they walk the talk that they're talking about helping our students. We have a very small window. September 13th is the last day for the legislators' session to make that decision to put the initiative of whatever they're putting by the March 2020 ballot. So we really need your help to contact them to make sure that they do that. And like Mr. Nishihara said, for us, we're asking another $2,000 on the top of ADA right now, which puts us on the average for the state funding, other states funding for our students. That gives us approximately $24 million, and that's significant. And as you know, a lot of our problems stems from the budget. And hopefully, if that happens, we have huge momentum this time. This has never happened before. They actually are listening right now. Before, we were all approaching it from different point of view, and single groups are going there. Now we're working together, and the momentum is wonderful. So there is a huge possibility that this will happen. So I'm asking everyone, begging everyone who has not done so to please call your legislators. We have very short timeline, and help us make this happen. It looks like we're almost there, so please. We need to increase those salaries for teachers. We need to do all the things we said we need to do for our schools so that we could deliver what's best for our students. I also would like to commend the request to give students doing band and guard elective credits for PE, because I remember when my daughter was in band, she would come home with sore legs from marching, and she was complaining why that could not be counted for PE credits. Many years later, I'm glad to see this happen for our current band students. So thank you for making that as part of our consideration tonight. With that said, I'm looking forward to a good year. And I have faith in everyone that we are ready to move forward in making our school district one of the best school districts ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Same applies, I wish everyone a very safe, successful, and a good school year. And I must say that we have kept Dr. Thompson very busy over the summer, and he has been actually phenomenal to work with. So we look forward to a very successful year with you as well. So with that, if you have anything to share.
I do have some things to share. I'd like to start off by thanking our NHTA and CSCA partners in helping us plan for the start of the year. We spent some very interesting time together, working together, trying to create some shared understandings, I think, and then to plan for the site work that was done yesterday. All of our sites were working. Our teachers came back for the first time yesterday, and all of our sites were ready and had activities planned for them to help them prepare for the year. It ended, the first part of the morning is when that occurred, and then we had a lunch where all staff were invited. We had about 650 people show up, and I think every taco we served was eaten. It seemed like people were having a good time. So I really think that due to the collaboration by our partners and the work done by our administrators and staff, I think we're ready. I think we're ready for the first day, and I feel very confident. And I know Joe was very supportive of that. Thank you, Joe. So that's great. A little bit of good news. In mid-July, I was really concerned about our enrollment. We were projected to be down 300 students. In mid-July, we were down 340 students. As of today, we are 200 students above what Net had projected, and very close to where we were last time. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic because this does not include all the people we don't know, we think are going to show up tomorrow and aren't going to show up. But this is significantly better than it was in mid-July. So that's in part a credit to our Student Service Department, who really worked hard to bring in all of our intra-district transfers and really be aggressive about getting our families enrolled.
Yeah.
So that was great. Thank you to that staff for doing that. I've been aggressively going around and starting my listening and learning tour. I've been to 3 schools already, meeting with parents and met with staff all over the place. We have a link on our website now for the Superintendent Survey, so you can go there, and anybody who's interested can provide us feedback on what you think we should be doing and how, which will become ideally the basis for board goals moving forward. The website also has, we're slowly moving forward and upgrading things, the fair and full funding flyers there, and so we're trying to better utilize that. Hopefully we'll have an advocacy committee and that will help with that too coming up. That's a little later on. And let's see. And that's about it. I think we're ready. So thank you all, and I'm enjoying my time so far.
Good, thank you, Dr. Thompson.
I just would like to commend you for your aggressive campaign for enrollment, because I know there were a few this summer who were, in the past, we wait till the end of the 15th day to make sure we see who shows up. But this summer, I'm really glad that we did push for placing, because the parents are asking right now, and they're saying, if you don't do it now, I'm going to go to the district. So thank you for doing that. I did see it happen, and I saw the community happy and thankful for doing that now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's due to the hard work of the staff and student services. They've really been working hard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the public comments. Are there any visitors on topics not on agenda?
Yes, we have one.
You want to just call?
It's Joe to talk on the topic of class size.
Again, good evening, President Board, members of the board, Dr. Thompson, district staff. Appreciate that. District staff, members in the gallery, and those at home. Again, I want to start off by saying I do appreciate Dr. Thompson coming on board. Our first conversation was very positive in moving us forward, which we all know, like I said here, it is something we got to do. Maybe the difficult step to move forward, but I think what he described Monday did have some ways for us to get back in conversation, and probably the most important thing, understand how we move forward. This is always a thing, because obviously, as we all know, the emotions of the whole thing, strike last spring has its impact. So I appreciate the initial conversation. I think it was a clever effort to kind of get folks back in the swing of school and our service. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention, like I mentioned in my thing about class size. As you recall, in April, when the first conversation about the direction of the district to increase class size, both the union and the community very much were opposed to that conversation. And I can say now that we're in the throes of school, that's already been noticed of that kind of change in classroom environment. I've gotten reports from different school sites saying they're really concerned about what they're seeing in their class rosters and all the impact of what that will mean in the going forward. And I also want to recognize and thank both the instructional staff from Scott and from the HR staff from Derek in meeting with us after some of our specialists got word of what the impact of these kind of class changes as well as staff. But it does point in a direction where there's a lot of impact that seems not to be really thought out, because there was really, I'm glad those meetings I just mentioned, the 2 areas helped out, because there was a big concern that tomorrow will be a big snafu, in particular for the areas concerned, which is our specialist areas, science, the foundations of science, PE, media, and music, some very good programs here in the district that we're known for. But there are serious concerns about it. So I just want to put back on the consciousness and awareness of all of us here, that the class size thing is really something that we really need to look at. The big survey you just mentioned has an impact on that, and if we change up that kind of service, I think that's going to have an impact. So again, I want to put that on the minds of us, working together in the conversation. Because obviously, like I said, without the involvement of teachers, with some of the things that Dr. Thompson and I talked about at the summer advance, there has to be some kind of really truly work and value that work from those who serve Monday through Friday on the front line of education. So again, I just want to mention out loud that class size is very much a concern for the union, and I feel probably the community as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any, moving on to public comments again for Section 8, visitors on the agenda?
We have two. We have one on consultant expenditures and another on the SRO MOU. I think the SRO is up first, and that's Gavin Smith.
Good evening. So I'm a parent and I'm a teacher. So the first one, 9.4 SROs at Logan. I had some questions. I read it. I was trying to figure out, it looked like we were terminating our agreement with the city to pay for the two SROs. The reading in it, I was curious, does it mean at Logan we won't have any SROs? Will we only have one? It seems obvious that we won't have two. I have a daughter, and so I have a daughter who will be a freshman at Logan, so, and I have a son at Chavez. So, to me, as a parent, that's a concern. Last February, we had a stabbing right next to the locker where my daughter has her locker this year. That could have been just a one-time occasion, but it's still concerning. So that's really my question there. I don't really need the rest of the time. Should I just go?
I think is he also the speaker?
Yes,
for the next
yeah,
topic?
he can talk, move on to consultant expenditures.
So the other thing, so I'll put on my teacher kind of hat. So I appreciate, Dr. Thompson, the efforts that you've made. I've been to, I think, all of your meet and greet with superintendents. You present well. You said many, I think, most of all the right things. I don't think I really heard anything that I didn't like. One of the things I liked was you said, I can say I can talk all night, I think you said. But what's really going to matter is the actions that are taken. And participating in what we did as teachers yesterday, talking about how we felt moving forward. One of the common things I think came up was just the idea of actions in the form of gestures. Most of us all have relationships. I have a wife. If I do something that upsets my wife, or vice versa, it's not going to get smoothed over immediately. Obviously, we want to make sure that things are going on with kids. We care about kids, which I think the district cares about the kids. Teachers care about the kids. The union cares about the kids. But what matters moving forward is the gestures that we make towards each other. And so some of those things would be like, for instance, the SRO. That's a gesture that parents might perceive as, wow, that's a big impact toward class size. Inviting teachers to the retreat, that was a gesture. How we did our staff first day back yesterday, that was a gesture. So all of these things are things that I think moving forward we need to do. In regards to the expenditures, one of the things that concerns me, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I look at consultants from a teacher's perspective. I don't outsource my lesson planning. I don't outsource my grading. And at the district office, it just feels like during the strike, we heard a lot about how we're declining enrollment. But the district staff here at the district level doesn't diminish. And we hire consultants to do trainings for $3,000 a day at a pop. So I think if I read it right on 10.36 and 10.37,
Yeah.
that totals 24,000, I think.
One of them is 5,000 per day, and another one the 3,000 per day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, and I don't disagree with EL training. I don't disagree with educating teachers and things like that, but I do get concerned that that type of outsourcing of training happens at a very high rate of expenditure, and I feel like we could be collapsing roles at the district level to help, again, be a gesture of showing, hey, we're all tightening our belt. If that makes sense. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you. I'll leave it. Should I leave it on? Or actually, I don't even think I have it.
I think you might be the last one. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Section 9, action items, 9.1, appointments to new board committees. Dr. Thompson?
Yes, so I'm proposing something new. One of the things that I think staff would benefit greatly from is having board representatives working with us in an advisory fashion on areas of significance. And we have two areas of significance, I think, that we could use immediate assistance with. First, we need to do a better job of marketing and communicating with our community. And what I'm proposing is that the board create a budget and advocacy committee. Second, we have, as have been pointed out a couple times already this evening, we have some budget challenges ahead of us. And we'd like the board to establish a budget and finance committee as well. So let me just explain a little bit about what these committees are. These are advisory committees. There's no board actions taken. They're meetings where staff and board representatives, not a quorum, no more than two, we're recommending two, can work with staff to help plan, discuss strategies for, and get, and ultimately possibly making recommendations to the full board about actions that would be taken. They're committees that we would, since they're not regular committees, they're not subject to open meeting rules. We would post the agendas, but these would not be meetings where minutes would be kept. These are working sessions. And again, if anything that came from these committees that would require action, it would have to be recommended to the full board for action. Those actions would, of course, be subject to the Brown Act and full public review. We really see this as critical to making sure that we're moving together quickly and together in a way that is productive and moves us forward in an expeditious manner.
Okay, thank you. So before we take or discuss and then take a volunteer, whoever wants to be in either one of those committees, if I can get a motion and a second to approve appointment to new board committees.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and then I think I can go ahead and ask who might be interested in the advocacy and the communication.
Do we want to do roll call first?
Well, no,
No, we'll do it after, once we have the names.
So just a point of clarification, Superintendent said budget and advocacy, he meant communication.
Communication and advocacy,
yes.
budget and finance, yes.
Thank you for the correction.
Budgeting, finance, and communication advocacy,
Yes.
correct.
Another clarification, could we be on both or one or the other?
One or the other.
We prefer one or the other, but if we have members who are not available to attend these, because of their commitment, then we can probably have one person who
An
might be on
alternate?
both. Yeah, it'll be an alternate, yes.
Okay.
So
it'll
two and
be
an
two
alternate.
members and alternate,
Yes.
correct.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'll start off with the communication and advocacy.
I'd like to volunteer for that one.
Okay.
Vacation, right?
Communication advocacy, yes.
Okay, is there a second member that might be interested in that?
I'm saving myself for the budget if I could only have
Okay,
one.
that's
but
fine. That's
if
certainly
there's a
fine.
second one, I'll take an alternate on this one.
I don't mind serving on that committee.
On this one?
You second.
Okay, so I could be the second one, is an alternate. You want to be the alternate?
Give Jeff chance
Oh.
to.
Much easier than I thought it would be. All right, moving on to the Budget and Finance Committee.
I'm in the budget.
Budget.
Okay, now we have three people that want to be in it, so.
So one of
So
them
if-
can be alternative. One of them
One
can
could be an alternate, yeah. So Linda, you want to be on that,
Budget, right.
on the
I'm in
budget?
the budget too, yeah.
Okay. You knew this was going to happen, right? We have.
Yeah.
And then, so now between Sarjeet and,
No, I think because Linda is alternate on the other committee, so give us chance to serve on the budget committee, and she can be the alternative on this one too.
No, I will take my name out of the other one if that's the case.
Okay. All right, so Jeff, or would either one of you be interested in being the alternate? And I think this is only for 1 year. We can certainly,
we can
let's do this
circle
one.
back the following year.
Just as a point of clarification, this is actually not a standing committee, so.
No, it's
So we don't
Yeah.
have a timeline. So once we get the outcomes that we want,
Yeah.
the committee.
These are not standing committees.
Okay, I mean, just want to ask you the subjects and, okay, I want in the budget, if you really want, and since Linda means she want it, and I can be the alternate.
Okay.
And if it, yeah, I can be the alternate in both standing committees if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
I think that's fair.
yeah.
That's fair. So I will put you as the alternate for the communication and advocacy
Thank you.
and for the budget and finance, and I will make Linda and Sarabjit as the two members who will be the main point of contact for those. And again, I think any action that needs to be taken will be brought up to the board. So ultimately, it's just you guys, working with the stakeholders and in an advisory form. Okay, well, with that, I just got logged out.
I was wondering if we can discuss a little bit of further how we will appoint the members to these committees. So we need to have partners from the.
I think that's what you will be, if I'm
NHUSD,
understanding it correct,
CSEA,
that's what you will be discussing and working with your immediate teams and deciding how you want to roll out this committee. Does it make sense to, engage the community partners right away, or does it make sense to build something up first and then bring them into, for their input and things like that?
If
And
I can clarify, that's exactly, these are small working groups that will help us plan how we develop our community engagement parts of it. So clearly with a budget, we're going to have community sessions, we're going to have work sessions with CSEA and NHTA. This is just the group that helps us plan that and figure out how to move forward. So there might be times where we invite other people in, but for the most part, this is just a small working group. Anybody can come that wants to come, but it's designed to be a very, very nimble working group to help us plan.
And to be clear, the output will likely be a report or recommendation to the full board on
Yes.
action items that we need to take together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I also want to clarify that a third person could attend but do not have any, don't participate if there's a third person in that meeting, or you recommend not to have a third person at all?
By third person,
I
meaning the
think that-
alternate?
Yeah.
I think the third
No,
person.
so it's only going to be the
Yeah,
two
two.
that are the primary members.
Okay.
And if you happen to be out that day, you will inform the alternate
Okay.
and saying, I'm not going to be, it's just like any other committees.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I just want to
I-
clarify it now.
If there is a third member, then we need to post it on the agenda.
No, we cannot have a third member
If I
because
have
then
a
it'll
third
be a
one, I
found out
think it's broken
violation.
Right.
the Brown Act, right?
Third
Yeah.
member should not be present unless the
That's why I asked
primary.
if they're present, they need to be not saying anything.
So if Jeff shows up to either one of these meetings and two members are already present, you can tell Jeff to leave.
Or no, you could, or Jeff could just be a community member.
Right, and not say anything.
How would that
And not
work?
participate.
That's community, since we are going to post these as, like we would public meetings, even though the normal open meeting rules don't apply. A community member could attend. My recommendation would be, you're going to get a report out from at board meetings anyway. My recommendation would be only the two show up. And we'll have key staff members there working with those two. And then there will be a report out at every board meeting. So I don't see, and I have a feeling,
An explanation.
knowing how things are going to roll out with our board meeting schedule, well, you're going to be really busy. So you're probably not going to want to attend more meetings than you have to.
It's good to clarify right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Any further discussion on this topic?
Yes.
Okay, roll call,
No.
please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to 9.2, Resolution Number 001-192, Resolution of the Board of Education of the New Haven Unified School District requesting the Board of Supervisors of Alameda County to establish a tax rate for bonds of the district expected to be sold during fiscal year 2019-2020 and authorizing necessary actions in connection therewith. Ms. Halpin.
Yes, good evening once again. So this is for the current bond that is active right now, the one that was authorized by the voters in 2014, which is bond measure M. We did this same process when we issued Series A and in 2015, and we had to do a similar process when we issued Series B. So this is according to the schedule. because the projects are going on. We need to make sure that we don't run out of cash and that we have the ability to levy those taxes. So this is simply a routine or an official process in which we are telling the county to set those tax rates for us so that we can issue on schedule Series C of Bond Measure M.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 001-1920?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
I'm
Want
the
the-
next item. so-
Okay. So you're ready. 9.3, which is the approval of the proposal for retiree health valuation under GSB 74-75, formerly known as GASB 4345. Ms. Feldman.
Yes, so Government Accounting Standards Board, I'm sure I got that right. It's a group of people and they actually issue pronouncements now and then. Essentially, these are new rules or new procedures that we as local agencies have to follow. So this is regarding retiree benefit. So this is a requirement that we have to go through in terms of valuing our liability, our retiree benefit liability. So again, by law, according to this pronouncement, and based on the size of our district, we are on a 2-year cycle. So we are entering that 2 years, and therefore we need authority to move forward with this procedure so that we can have an updated valuation of our liability.
Okay. May I have a motion and a second to approve the approval of the proposal for retiree health valuation under GASB 7475?
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Nope.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, ratification of agreement addendum with the City of Union City for the School Resource Officer Program year 2018-2019 and 2019-2020. Scott.
I think I'll take this one if that's okay. Scott, you can step in and correct me if I'm incorrect anywhere. And this gets to the public comments as well. So last year we only had one SRO in the entire district, correct, Scott? That's right. And unfortunately, the New Haven Police or the Union City Police Department lost the funding that funded the SRO program. They also have no staff to staff it, even if the funding was there, because they're experiencing a pretty extreme staffing shortage. I met with Chief Renetti, and he walked me through this and explained that he wasn't here when the initial MOU was designed either, but he did confirm for me that we could have all the money in the world and they wouldn't be able to provide us with a police officer. So this isn't less about funding and more about staffing availability. So I was concerned, and I met with Captain Souza, and our Student Services Department. Captain Souza also has a freshman going to Logan this year, and he assured me that he isn't remotely concerned about the safety of our kids by not having an SRO on the campus there. We actually have we have a program. It's an ROP program where police officers teach our children. So there actually are police officers on our campus almost every day, but in a different capacity. More importantly, what we talked about with our Student Services Director, Marcus Lamb, were the protocols we were going to use for accessing help when we need it. And so there's a series of protocols that were put in place that were jointly developed with the police department, and that was sent out to all of our administrators. So the only site that was affected was Logan, because there were no other SROs at any of the other sites last year. And we have protocols in place to make sure our kids are safe. We're going to revisit this in the spring to see if their staffing levels have changed and the funding's there. And that's why this addendum, that's the purpose of this addendum, is to basically recognize that and formalize that.
Yeah. Thank you, Gavin, for speaking for this item number, and thank you, Superintendent Thompson, for clarifying and giving us information as well. Just for clarification, Chief Donetti, he was not the chief, but he was the main, he was the captain, and he was the main person from the police department PD who worked on the SRO and contract and everything. So he knows what was happening, and I'm glad to know that we have a police presence on our campus. So in case, I hope nothing happens. So I just want to be thankful for the information.
Go ahead. I have a question. I heard that you said you could have all the money in the world, but it's a personal issue. So how do we have, does it have to be a police officer to have a second person on campus to help with the safety of the students?
Well, I mean, this agreement is with the Union City Police
Right.
Department, so that's all they have. I mean, they don't have any other staff that could play that, support that role for us, no.
Okay, so outside this one, this is a good time to ask it,
Yeah.
even though it's, is there a capacity for us to find somebody who's not a police officer who would be able to act like an extra eye on campus to promote safety for our students?
Like a security guard?
I don't know, I don't care what you call it, but someone who would be an extra person to have those extra eyes, because sometimes just the presence of a person could discourage an possible issue.
Well, we have campus security professionals there that are there every day with CSEA, so it's not like we don't have security staff there. The SRO program was something, really the purpose of it was also to build relationships with students
Right, I
and
understand
staff.
that,
Yeah, so we have security personnel there and that are our employees. We don't have an external person, but
I
yeah.
just want to make sure it's clear to me.
If I can just add one more thing to Kevin's point, even though we had 2 SROs that we had contracted with the police department, even if they were here, they were typically being called out to patrol the city. So even though we had them here per the contract, they really weren't here because they really have a true shortage at the department.
Staff.
And Annette can probably speak on that too. It's even though we had the contract with them, they were only invoiced or paid out for the hours that they actually spent on our campus. So as much as we would have loved to have them full-time, we do understand their concern, and that's the reason when we met with them, we decided that, let's not eliminate this, let's not take this off the table completely, let's revisit. So we had initially put February as the date to revisit, but now that they're going to be putting a safety ballot measure on March 2020 ballot, so it makes sense to do it afterwards, so we have an idea as to where that went. So we'll definitely be circling back. It's not something that we are going to take off the table completely, so I just wanted to add that in.
So I'd like to add something. I personally think this is completely unacceptable. One of the things that that I actually am really concerned about is not necessarily the funding. Yes, I get that. But Measure QQ, which passed in 2016, at 78% in favor, was to maintain essential police and fire services. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but include enhancing public school safety. And it feels like to me like Union City voters are already paying for this to the tune of $4.1 million annually. We've been paying for it, and so it's not necessarily a funding issue. What I think this board needs to do, this is not the time this is not a time in this country to start skimping on school safety. And so if that means that we are not going to be able to rely on external agencies to provide this, we have to take it upon ourselves to ensure that our schools are safe, specifically around the things that we have control over. We have control over our facilities. We have control over camera systems. We have control over the quality of our CSTs. We have quality over a bunch of things. So yes, I do want the conversation to continue, to continue to fund an SRO, because that's actually what the citizens of Union City have already paid for.
Yes.
But first and foremost is the security and safety, and also the perception of our students. So we can't stop here and just say, all right, well, this is, there's, it's hard to fill the job. Or we have SROs that get called off. Like we need what we contracted for, and we need what the city of, what the citizens of Union City have paid for. So we have to not stop until we ensure that our students are safe, and so that we have to take that within what we have control over.
Okay.
Let's start with Jeff, and then we'll move down this way.
Yes, I'm a second on the let's said. Yes, and so for Measure QQ, the funding should be paid to the 2020, November 2020, the year 2020. And yeah, last time, and we are just asked at more, so we agreed to the 50-50, the funding and extra funding for the SRO2. And the second one, I think like now, and we don't want to take the risk and say sorry later. And I think the students are very important. I think, and for the president and also superintendent, and you guys should continue to working for the city. This is the between the city and the school district. Yeah, we should working, fighting a little harder. And another thing, and I understand, and for the March 2020, and the city will continue for the parcel tax, because that's the parcel tax is include the police and firefighters, and that's also included the school district in the for the SRO fundings. Yeah. So I want to make sure that we're clear, the community will understand very well. Yeah.
Yeah, before we move on to Ms. Chima, I just want to say, I know we talked about in length about Measure QQ when we had Daryl McAllister as the chief, and he came in and he gave a presentation. I know we all wanted a portion of that fund because that's what we all voted for, but that wasn't the reality. That's not what happened. So I don't know if we can revisit Measure QQ, and I believe it sunsetted, sunsets in 2020. 2020.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, so that's where this new ballot measure comes on.
Yes.
Absolutely, we need security, and it's something that we can get the conversation started again.
But I think at this point,
if it's not,
if there's any advocation to be done for this, we have to ensure that it's very, very clear that there's going to be an allocation for an SRO instead of really kind of flighty language that says that we're gonna what was it? It was to improve school safety. Like, we need to have a firm commitment of what that actually means rather than vague promises.
Yeah, and I think because we went through the Measure QQ and the hurt we all felt once we realized that that money was just to backfill the hole that they had, will definitely be more ears and eyes on that. And I think that's not to say that we cannot have, I think to Ms. Callis's point, extra security around, whether that's external agency that we'll have to contract out or have our own, techs be more alert, and also those security cameras that we have.
Yeah, and I can comment on a couple of different things there. I'm meeting with the city manager on Thursday, and I can bring this up. It's a sales tax that they're bringing forward in March to fund safety, and I can make sure that she's aware of how we feel and about having funds carved out that way. This addendum is simply something that's already happening in place. We're just hoping, the purpose of it is to make sure it doesn't go away, that we do bring it back. School safety is something that you can talk to our facilities director. He knows I've been around looking at temporary fencing and trying to seal up the footprints of our buildings in a more efficient way. I've talked to Logan Avi about that as well. It's critical. It's the number one thing that we have to do. But there's a bigger picture to that. This is just a singular piece that is linked to other things, but certainly are the staffing levels and the facility security and anything else we can do to make sure our kids are safe is going to be at the forefront of everything that we do.
And if I may also play the devil's advocate on this, I know that when, in talking to certain communities feel having a police presence on campus doesn't really, it works a negative way. They feel that they're there to really intimidate them or even to arrest them if something goes wrong. So it's not just a perception of safety, but it's also a perception of, oh, am I in trouble? Are they going to get me and get me in trouble? So we'll have to kind of, think through that one as well. And that's the reason when we had these lengthy conversations, they also said that it's not having two bodies on campus that just patrol, it's also the relationship building as well. So we want to have an SRO program as opposed to just an officer who's in a uniform walking around on campus. We want this officer to be talking to our students. We want this officer to be engaging with, different activities and talking to these individuals and getting that fear out. So I think I also want us to keep that in mind as well when we're having these conversations with the department and the city manager, that we want to address those as well. And I think
Let Linda give chance first. She might say the things I want to say.
Yes. Let's have you go first.
Well, you alluded to some of the things I was going to share, which is the uniform is there to build relationship, so that people do, or students in this case, do not only see them as someone to arrest them, but they're to actually build relationship with them, and they're there to support them with their safety. With that said, I want to go back to what Mr. Nishihara was saying. QQ is over. We know the city is having a deficit as well, so I don't think we will see anything from them anytime soon, especially if they don't have the personnel. But I also hear that moving on forward, the discussion with the city manager is the urgent need for someone to honor, and if they can't, on the next one, to make sure if they put it there that they actually walk the talk. Now, that still does not solve our problem of possible jeopardizing the safety in our schools. So my question to this board is, I'm wondering, what can we do if we don't have the police officers, which is the ideal situation? What can we do in the meanwhile to enhance the safety of our students? Because I don't want to wait till something else happens before we start thinking about additional safety for our students. Because I don't think what we have right now is good, but I'm not sure. I'm not there every day. I'm not sure if it's enough.
Well, and I can comment on that. Let me give you an example. When that stabbing happened last year with the poor student, it wasn't the SRO who was the first responder.
Yes.
It was the police from across the street that were here.
Yes.
And for all of our schools, with only one staffed SRO last year, they relied on the police department to provide our services. So it's really not much different than it was last year. It really isn't in terms of the safety of our children.
Yes.
It's the relationship piece. It's all the other pieces. It's a resource for our administrators to try to finesse and figure out who they should call, what they should do next. That's the biggest resource that we're losing, because the reality is one person was not keeping 11,000 kids safe last year.
Yeah.
That was not happening. So it's the broader role that the SRO plays. We rely on our police department for the security of our kids for any significant event, first and foremost, and we're calling 911 and they're coming. It's not the SROs that are doing that. I've worked with SROs my entire career, and they are usually, even when fully staffed. There used to be, when that grant came out years ago, you had quite a few of them, and that helped a lot. But when you're down to just one for an entire district of 11,000 kids, if you're counting on that to secure your kids, that is not what the SRO is doing.
My last statement was, I'm wondering what other options we have to enhance the safety of our students.
We can talk about that. And I have, for example, I know a safety consultant who works, I hate to mention consultants, but this is a very specialized piece of work that we could have if the board wants to come in. We had a safety assessment done already about the perimeter in our facilities. There are other people that we can bring in to really assess the cameras, the staffing, the training our staffing has. Our campus supervisors trained properly. Are our school safety plans done in a manner that actually it affects school safety at the site?
So,
we can look at all of these things.
Yeah, perhaps it's a conversation that we could look at in the future.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, this addendum isn't going to make one. It's just, again, it's actually trying to preserve the fact that we want to keep the SROs coming. So that's what this is about.
Thank you, Member Chima.
So, thank you, Dr. Thompson, for giving us your opinion, which is very good. I like that. 2 points which are not covered in this discussion. I know we have covered a lot of things. One is some community members at the time, they mentioned that instead of SROs, we need to have another or one or two counselors. They had that opinion, like you said, they see the SROs as a negative and not a contributing as a positive way. So the second thing is, city will be asking for the parcel tax or the sales tax extension soon. We as a board, they asked for us to support it last time, and so we need to have prepare ourselves for that conversation. So
yeah, we'll definitely have to be looking at the
yeah.
language and see if that's something that will serve our safety aspect.
Right, so we need to have discussion with the new city manager moving forward.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I'll start that Thursday.
Also, if we decide to move forward with our own measure, then how we will work together. Thank you.
Okay, Member Wang.
Okay, I need to add on, the wider parents, the Nishihiras and the teachers, and why they concerned about SI, the safeties, and because the community needs. As I looking for the last couple of years, and when I was aboard, honestly, I do not see the SRO, visible, and that they are doing something according to my understanding, and I'm looking for the state, the website talking about SRO. They have 4 functions. They are educators. And this is number one. So we need the people talk about to the students. And the second, as the informal counselor and the mentor for some kind of students, and especially high school, some students get lost. And also there's a law enforcement officer, of course, this we understand. And the last one, and for the emergency managers or planner for the school district. So I wanted the SRO more visible, so then we can tell the parents, the community says, yes, we really see the safety is important. We want the community to know that. Maybe they did some things, and even like me, I'm not know too much. So how about the stockholders and community peoples? Yeah, if they have any concern, I totally understand. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. With no further discussion, then roll call, please.
Nay.
Abstain.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, it's the consent agenda item. This one's a little tricky. Are there any items from the board that you would like pulled for questions or clarification or a separate vote?
Yeah, I have just comments for 10.1 and 10.37, I believe. Let me just check. Yes, 37.
Okay, any other members?
10.37 and 10.1.
10.37.
Are there other members who
last one?
want any items pulled for clarification, separate vote, or discussion?
There is no separate vote, but my questions actually, they were answered already, but I might repeat them. 10.24 and 10.33.
10.33.
That's all.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted to bring out a comment, or at least a question for 10:34 through 37.
Through 37, so 34, 35, 36, and 37.
Yeah.
Okay, Member Wang, anything that you would like to have pulled for separate vote discussion?
I think it's a big include,
Okay.
yeah.
So why don't we start with 10.1 and go in that sequence?
That's just a comment. I was looking at the minutes. I thought I'd mention something about the full and fair funding on that day, but it doesn't reflect anywhere in the minutes. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, let's go with 10.33 next. And 10.33 is the approval of the
School bell schedule.
Yeah, school bell
I already talked to Mr. Pisani about this. I just want to make sure that we are complying with the state's daily and annual instructional minutes, and we need to have some kind of verification, because at one time, many years back, staff changes, administration changes, so we were not complying. So I just want to make sure, and Scott has provided me the solution that he will provide us the copy of the requirement and then our school. So that's it. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
And then for the schedule, I have two questions I want to clarify. The number one is, I just want to clarify, and for the TK and the kindergarten, we don't have any half-days program anymore, right? So the community is very confused, like the Kiriyamas have the half-days and the day program. I just want to make sure, looking for the schedule, they are all the same.
They're not. Kiriyama still has half-day kindergarten.
So everybody have it's the same. The number two, and I'm looking for the some and the school side have a supervision, the 15 minutes, and some school side is not. Why is that?
They should.
I mean, I'm looking for the bells and.
We'll have to, I don't know if, we may have to get back in. I don't know, Scott, if you can address that. Okay.
Can I ask clarification? Are you talking about the recess or?
No, not at the beginning or the end.
Usually.
15 minutes earlier, 15 minutes later for the schedule.
They usually have yard duty people covering those times. Like when you have recess and lunch, recess, before and after school, usually they have people who are on duty during those times, adults.
No, I mean, so some schools decide, elementary, so they have a 15 minutes earlier and 15 minutes end. So I'm just concerned, why is it different and what's the responsibility? Because if we say school started with 7:55 and some students are coming earlier, and, well, we should be not allowed it, right?
Well, no, as long as they fulfill the required minutes by the state. It doesn't matter what the flexibilities are, as long as the total minutes at the end of for the entire year totals a certain amount required by the state.
I'm not talking about how long.
Maybe let's have Scott clarify that.
If I'm understanding the question correctly, is about supervision before or after school.
Yes.
Before, after, yeah.
There are staff members that are assigned to supervision before school and after school. It is part of the contractual agreement in terms of the required supervision that is offered at our campuses. So there are students, if you'll notice, that either at a receiving area or in the cluster or at the elementary schools on the playground, there are staff members who are there prior to the start of the school day, as well as at the end of the school day at our school sites to provide for supervision of our students until the campus clears, typically 15 minutes before the start of the day and 15 minutes after the end of the day.
But why is not all the campus, just certain, like elementary school, some school yes, some have the no, some have a half? Why is that? Let me looking for the data.
No, I think he's talking about why do some schools have different start times.
Not just start school at the same time. So for example, I'm talking about Ablada Elementary School, and they do not have the staff and the supervision time. If you're looking for the Easter, yes, they are. Yeah, they all have the starting time and warning time. Yeah. So I'm talking this one, the staff and supervision time for the Eastern and for the Ablada Elementary School.
So,
for instance, yeah.
So on the reference that you're having, without it having in front of me, what I imagine that you have in front of you is that some sites listed their supervision time on their bail schedules, and some may not have. Bail schedules are typically a communication tool for parents and community for the start and end time. They may have also included information in terms of supervision. That's not an expectation that we've had for all sites previously in terms of having that information on their bail schedules. Some sites may have chosen to include it to be able to inform parents as well.
So I think the real concern is that they are not consistent with all elementary schools. So maybe, if you can
and also for the ending,
in a more consistent way, or it can.
For the starting and ending, they are not consistent. That's right.
I'll tell you what, we'll come up, we'll send you something that will address this.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the 10.34. Ms. Chima had it, and then Lance also had addition to that.
No, it's not actually 24. I said 24.
Okay, I read you as 34. Okay, 10.24 then.
Okay. 24 was, we are adding, it was also clarified to me, but I can just, for the information sake, I can share it here. There are 2 new courses, James Logan High School PE courses. So in my understanding of the reading, I thought they are adding 2 PE courses, but which is not the case. They are just providing the credit to the band, it's those activities. So, if you can
And it's
share
also,
it again. Yeah.
it's also as a result of our experience with federal program monitoring and the opportunity for students to earn PE credit through band and auxiliary, and the clarification around the credentialing requirements for the teachers who deliver that instruction.
Right.
And so they may get PE credit now, or they may get an elective credit through these courses that are listed. Ensuring that students who are taking band and color guard as their PE credit receive instruction from an appropriately credentialed teacher. We're in the midst of having our music staff over at James Logan enrolled in coursework so that they can also be being able to deliver that type of instruction to our students and not necessarily depend on the members of the PE department to do that. We have a 1-year waiver for us to be able to have our staff engage in that process. And in the meantime, again, having students having the opportunity to either receive PE credit or not PE credit, and making sure that they have access to the 8 courses in PE that will allow them to be successful on their physical fitness testing taught by a credentialed PE teacher. So we're working on that assignment in order for that to occur.
Thank you.
Daughter would love to.
Okay, thank you. 10.34.
Yeah, so I just actually wanted to comment on the 1034 through the 1037s.
Yeah.
Like Gavin, I actually am kind of sensitive to, consulting spending in our current budget, situation. The one thing that I did understand from the agenda cover sheet is this funding is coming out of Title III,
Yes,
right? So
correct.
it's a different pot of money. While I am, while we do want to keep an eye on the spend, it is also important to understand the funding source. So I generally be supportive of it.
If I can also remark, all of the 10.34 through 37, again, Title III funding we received to specifically support the needs of English language learners. And all of these items are specifically targeted for that purpose.
Thanks, I just wanted to call that out.
Okay, did I cover all the items that members wanted to discuss?
I just want to add regarding 10.37. Like what Mr. Nishihara mentioned, I understand the reasoning, but I still feel uncomfortable. This times are, we're watching our pennies right now, and I'm really a little bit shocked about 10.37 for having someone, maybe they're rock stars off their field, but that amount that is stated in this one is, it's just, to me, still outrageous. Well, I'm thinking probably, even if it's coming from Title III, it's still important. I think that, first of all, I want us to be mindful of how we spend our funds and minimize our consultant, first of all. Second is to have, I understand the average, and that's fine, but when it gets to that amount, it just gets my attention, and I think I feel uncomfortable about having to spend that much for a person when other people take a whole month to make that. That's just my thought.
I'd like to address that at some point. The board.
My question will be, I agree with what Linda said. So I would like to find out if there are any alternative ways to use this money. If we can develop in-home capacity, or we can have any alternative use of this money. And,
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Can I just address Stephen? One of the things I'd like to point out to you is you're not just getting the woman coming to talk who happens to be an expert in her field.
Yeah.
You're also getting proprietary duplication-ready materials that she's giving to us for teachers to use. So it's more than just a person. You're getting a package of her materials. I believe me, you can talk to my staff, nobody's spending a penny right now without me looking at it. And I looked at this one carefully because I do look at categorical funds as potential sources to offset expenditures that might free up general fund dollars. And I do philosophically believe that the best trainers that we have are the professionals in the classroom that can help train others. But there are times where bringing in somebody, particularly someone of like Kate Kinsella, who is a nationally renowned professional, and having also access to all of her reproducible materials for all of our teachers, that's something that I think does value our teachers and give them access to something that most schools across the country don't have the opportunity to have. So I do think that this is a chance for our staff to be exposed to not only the training, but to have access to all of her resources that she's giving to us as part of that money. So it's not just the $5,000 a day for her, it's access to all of the other materials as well.
I think Member Chima's point was really well taken in the sense that with the Title III funding, we should actually look at opportunity costs, right? If we're spending money on this, what are other things that we're not spending our money on the Title III, things that are eligible for Title III?
Mm-hmm.
What are we not doing that we should be doing?
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could, I'd like to introduce Bree Stevens. She's the Director of K-12 Instruction, who helps with and oversees our English Learner Program, to elaborate just a bit.
Before you start, will you please, because man, I just lost my thought. So it was regarding the cost about this Title III funds. Maybe I should.
Maybe we'll come back to yours.
Right.
After she clarifies.
Good evening, members of the board, President Court, and Superintendent Thompson. I wanted to take an opportunity to speak on this topic because I do understand that we're really saving every dollar and every penny at times like this. And I have overseen the Title III funds for close to 5 years, and want to provide you a little bit of background as to why these contracts were being asked to be approved. Separating two contracts out, the first one, I don't have the item number, I do now, is the 1034 for English 3D. That one is a little bit different. We purchased English 3D as the designated ELD curriculum, which is something that we need to fulfill in compliance in teaching our English learners in K-12. We purchased that curriculum for our middle school teachers and students, as well as high school. What we did was we have to order from Houghton Mifflin, who are the publisher of this materials. What we did was we asked for the consultant to be the author. We wanted the author to come and train our teachers on how to implement the materials, and we think that that's going to be the most effective for our teacher learning and growth. So the publisher actually reduced the quote that you approved back in April by close to $20,000, and I used those funds to ask for Teresa Hancock, the co-author of English 3D, to come and provide the training for our teachers. So either it's bundled, usually when you get curriculum, they bundle the professional development. I asked for that to be separated so we could have the best of the best, supporting our teachers in the implementation. There's a lot of history in terms of Dr. Kinsella or Teresa Hancock supporting teacher implementation around English 3D. One is very famous, Moreno Valley Unified, having worked with the materials and the trainers. They saw an 83% reclassification rate for their long-term English learners. That's a significant amount of increase. We would love to see that and mirror that type of data in our district. So instead of using publisher consultants that would bundle the materials, we isolated that. So that actually went with the English 3D material purchase that the board approved back in April, excuse me. So I wanted to explain that. And then the other part where Dr. Kinsella and Teresa Hancock is coming in to support, again, our teachers and looking at our practice and specifically about writing. Close to 4 years ago, the board approved a alignment study for English learners. At that point, we conducted and interviewed collected feedback from teachers and all stakeholders, parents, and so forth. Approximately 300 teachers answered that survey, and we did an in-person interview at every elementary, middle school, and high school. And during that survey, two things came up for our teachers. One is having enough current Common Core aligned instructional materials to support our English learner. The other was professional development. How do they get better at addressing the needs of our English learners? So those two areas came up, and I think we really addressed that area in our EL master plan that the board approved as well a couple of years ago. So part of that EL master plan is really looking at those two core components. Of course, we have parent engagement and recruitment and teacher retention. But those two core components is what I'm addressing tonight. So we purchased the materials, we have adoption K-8, we're working on alignment in 912, and now we're really looking to be compliance, federal program monitoring, make sure that we're compliant and serving our English learners in both designated and integrated ELD. So when we adopted the materials in K-8, one thing that came up often with our teachers in need of professional development, and I do want to say throughout the adoption and all the other materials, I myself and the coordinator of English Learner Services at the time, we provided professional development ourselves to K-8 and also supporting 912 teachers. We did not contract anything out. We provided professional development to teachers using the curriculum and piloting and implementing the curriculum. So in the last few years, something that stood out was an area of writing need. About 10 years ago, we had writers workshop adoption in our district that really looked at genre writing, what type of writing. The other writing that's in the curriculum, what Common Core calls for, is analytical writing. So trying to mirror the two was a challenge for our teaching staff. And that is the core reason we're inviting Dr. Kinsella to come in and support us. She has the expertise, the research knowledge. She is actually the lead expert consultant for California Department of Ed and have had several super effective, supportive grants in multiple districts that she works with. Again, we want to work with the best of the best if we were to contract out to make sure that our results mirror what she has done with other districts. So that is the rationale. I understand that it may seem like a really high amount, but it's the first time we really asked for a contract out of Title III. We provided all the professional services within, and we believe in building not our own capacity, but teacher capacity. So we're not looking to contract long-term, short-term, and really using her materials and her expertise to sustain the efforts over time. So it's costly upfront.
Thank you so much
for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing us the background and rationale for the and the reason to approve these. So two things came to my mind. Maybe in the future, not now. Like you said, this is the first time you are contracting out, so I don't know that. And one thing I want to make sure that our teachers, they buy into it. Because sometimes teachers, they do complain, they're like, stacks of different kind of professional development for them. Which one works best and which one is more relevant, and if the teachers, they appreciate it. So the second thing will be if out of all Title III funds, what is the percentage that we use for the professional development or growth? And also you just mentioned that the community engagement and which percentage we use for the community. So that's the future work for us to find out. Sure. Because of what we just been through it, all of us, we are having our ears and eyes wide open. So our intentions are not to kind of undermine your, your professionalism, but it's our duty to find out what's going on. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you giving me time to provide additional background information.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Callis.
Again, thank you for the explanation of why that is. I think these are hard times, and I think this discomfort comes from the number figure at the end of the day. Having someone allocated that amount of money when things are hard. Of course, we want the best for our kids. Of course, we want the best for our teachers. But I think I'm asking us, including the board, to be more mindful about where we are financially. I know this is your first one for the EL request, but at the same time, in general, I think it's important that we look at how much we really pay the consultants, because, again, we are looking at every penny. And when I first saw this before your explanation, and I was completely shocked to have that for one person for one day. So again, to me, my recommended takeaway is we really need to look at what we spend, how we spend it, because these are not rich times, these are hard times, and we really need to look at how we spend our money.
Sharon. So just to add on that, when I saw this amount, I actually Googled that person and find out that what she does, what kind of qualifications she has, So just to share that with you, it kind of raises the flag.
Thank you. No further question. I think these were all the items that we wanted to discuss. Okay, so with that, may I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 10.1 through 10.38?
I move.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Since we don't have anything, any of the items removed for separate vote, we will skip over 11. So Section 12, which is a board consensus, is a new agenda item that was added, and that was primarily to have it as a placeholder for us to have any requests. I know oftentimes we make requests, either we lose track of it or it gets lost in everything else that's going on. So we want to have a staff member keep track of all the requests, obviously with consensus, and have possibly, a tentative time frame as to when that could be delivered to us. And at the end of the year, or if the list just keeps growing and we realize, okay, that's no longer a priority, we can drop that off. But it's really for us as a board to have a place where we can place, or a section where we can actually request additional actions of our staff. So with that, if we have, yes, and by all means, we do not have to have a request. It is only if you have one, and then we can take a vote and see if it's what the board wants.
I just want to clarify for myself. So you're saying this is going to appear every single agenda, just so we hold as a placeholder, so in case of, let's say, Mr. Nishihara has comments about bathroom, that's where it goes?
That's exactly where it's going to go today. Yeah, that's what it's for. Yeah.
And if I could just reiterate, I've used this before, and it's really a really effective way of tracking board. But more, almost as importantly, because we get a lot of individual board requests all the time, and other board members don't know, and they get lost, and it's hard to communicate. This is a chance for you to vet your ideas amongst yourself, and if you agree that the majority of you agree that this is work you would like staff to do, that's great. Please don't feel like you have to add items to it. We have full-time staff that are working really hard already. So this is just a place for and it'll bring it back every board meeting. We'll review what we've covered, what we haven't, and then we'll have realistic discussions about what our challenges are and how quickly we can get things done, and hopefully we turn them around quickly.
And then the staff, you've discussed it with the staff, and
this will be we'll talk. Well, I mean, we'll
it was something that we wanted to have on. So again, I think if it's going to require 900 hours of the staff member, then we'll revisit that. But I think most of the requests are pretty reasonable. At least I think so. Unless they're coming from member countless, but
I'm going to be mindful of people's hours.
Okay. Are there any other questions on what that is in general? Okay.
Everybody's clear?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'll open it up to Member Nishihara, and then we'll go down the.
Yep. So I'll try to make them like really quick, and I can send them over to Lori to get them well documented, but. I'd like the staff to determine what it would take, both in terms of capital expenses and operational expenses, required to improve all the bathrooms at James Logan to assist with the following outcomes. One, bathrooms have modern, fully operational fixtures. All fixtures are modular and vandalism resistant. Changing out fixtures is cost effective. Students have a system for reporting bathroom deficiencies. We have adequate staffing to respond to reports inside of 15 minutes. And the staff has adequate methods for keeping the staff accountable to high standards. What this does and how this actually, this delivers on our LCAP goal of delivering our focus priority area on delivering basic services to our students. So this is something that I'm just asking staff to figure out what it would take to do that. How much does it cost to renovate a bathroom? How much coverage do we need on the custodial staff to ensure that we can respond to things like out of toilet paper or whatever it is. I'd just like to see if we can get an answer on how much it costs to renovate a bathroom and what kind of coverage we need to be able to maintain adequate restroom facilities at least at our high school for now. We could probably do it all over the place, but we should focus on Logan right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Is the direction clear?
I think so.
Okay. And then one more thing is related to school safety. We had talked about this today. I believe that somebody on the staff had talked about a school safety report that was done, but I hadn't seen it yet. So I just want to make sure that if you could circulate that, that we can review it as well.
I'll check on that with Ed. I think we had that. I'll talk with Ed about that, and we'll get you what we have.
Okay.
Great, thank
Any
you.
other members that would like to add? Okay, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for providing or doing a quick turnaround on that org structure. That was very helpful. And the other thing, I know you mentioned about the enrollment, and we're actually in the positives, or at least going in that direction. I just wanted to ask if you could share the enrollment per site, so that way we have an idea as to where we are at each school level and as a district as a whole.
We'll begin our 10-day, what we call the warm body counts starting tomorrow, and we'll see if we can get you updates, if not daily, then as close to that as possible.
The 15th day.
Yeah, well, we'll keep you updated as we go along.
Sounds good. Well, I think that is all we have. So with no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.